How many brands do you just walk past? How many brands are for you ignored? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. I'll see you in a wee minute. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to another vPub. Welcome to another Thursday night. It's absolutely fantastic to welcome you all here for a wee pocket of quiet and relaxed whiskey time. No guests tonight. It's just me, just flying solo for the evening, talking about a topic that I've been thinking about discussing for a wee while. I noticed that just before I start, I've had a couple of new Barfly members joining the channel tonight. Welcome, Yngve Brunsvik. And also Mark Carell, very nice to have you supporting the channel. Thank you so much. You now have access to all the kind of cool little Glencairn emojis and various other channel-specific emojis and things in the chat, as well as being able to support the channel. Thank you. If you're watching this, picking this up on the replay, I've been very good in 2021 so far. I've been staying up a wee bit later and scrolling through the live video, and dropping timestamps underneath. So in the description box, if you're interested to skip forward to specific whiskies or specific points in the video, you can do that using the timestamps. Thank you so much if you are watching it on the replay, and thank you all to all the beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies that are hanging out with me live, well over 200, 220 and climbing. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Tonight's topic is we've discussed hidden gems before in the past on the vPub. We've discovered these kind of under the radar type distilleries, the things that you would normally have to connect with through an independent bottler, that kind of thing. I'm thinking about distilleries like Tanninic up in the Highlands. I'm thinking about Benrinnes, and I'm thinking about Glentochers and various other favourite distilleries of mine and yours that really, they don't have much of a core range. But that's not what I'm going to talk about tonight. When I talk about the ignored, I'm talking about not the stuff that enthusiasts know about and know how to connect with. I'm speaking about the things that potentially we're ignoring. They've got a core range out there. They've got a brand. They've got a presence. They've got the product out there on shelves everywhere. And I might be kind of just talking about my own little echo chamber bubble here in the vPub. I might be speaking specifically about my own personal experiences, of course. But I'm kind of talking about the ones that, for whatever reason, it's not even that I don't connect with them. These are brands and producers that I haven't even taken the plunge and invested in purchasing much of their product. So we're not talking about kind of lots of 40% stuff. So Cragganmore 12-year-old from Diageo. We're not talking about the things that I often celebrate, like Glenmorangie 10 at 40%, or Glenfiddich 12 at 40%, or the wonderful Annoch 12 at 40%. There's lots of good whiskies out there at lower ABV, but you can only have so many low ABV products on your shelf. And as an enthusiast, you're kind of going, well, this was nice as a starter, but I'm kind of looking to take the sipping somewhere else this evening. And you kind of climb up to the more naturally presented, more full-on whiskey experiences. So that's what I'm going for. They're bringing some interesting presentation. They're bringing something natural, a core range. They're bringing it at reasonable prices. And for some reason, I'm still walking past. Why? What's going on? What's happening? Is it the brand? Is it preconceptions? Is it because I've heard not so nice things from other? Why am I continuing to ignore certain brands? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. And when I launch it a wee bit, I'm going to read off the list because I was shocked at the size of the list, and maybe it's the same for you guys too. But before I do that, let's jump in and welcome all the beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. The ones that keep this channel afloat, keep it independent, keep it ad-free. It's not monetized, so you don't have to sit through ads when you're watching the vPub. And I'm very grateful to all of you. Lee J. Brown is in saying, good evening, Roy. Annie Tiger, my friend. Good evening, Roy, from a snowy and heavy snow, Stockholm. Arnie, I hope you're doing okay. I hope you've got a dram in hand to keep you warm, my friend. Eric Cunliffe is in, saying good evening, Barflies, good evening, Aquaviti, good to see my friend, probably quite chilly out there in Canada as well. And my friend Thomas McCrory from just up the road is here as well. Great to see you, Thomas. Think about you often, my friend, and I hope you're doing very well. Paul Tabernor is in, as well as Time for a Dram, Gregor. That's Gregor over in Oregon. Paul, I'm trying to remember where you are as well. He's apologising for being 3 minutes late. Not bad. You never need to be worried about being late for the vPub, Paul. Thanks for joining us. Good to have you. Fabi Dram is in. That's a good name, Fabi Dram. It might be the first time I've welcomed you here tonight, saying good evening. Welcome to you. Drew from Arizona, my friend, is in, as well as Richie Z. Superb, guys. Great to see both of you from over the Atlantic. Peated Frank is here. Whiskey 101, that's Nick. Brilliant to see you guys. McAllen Fine and Rare as well. Good to see you, Doc. I've used Doc for a wee bit of support for the quiz at the end tonight. For those of you who are interested in a bit of a crunchy, tricky, difficult quiz, I sent the quiz along to Doc. And I have to say, just at the head of the vPub, that question 10, the asshat question from last week, was a mistake on my part. I talked about Janinic being Diageo's third biggest distillery. It's actually their fourth biggest because I forgot to factor in Glenord, and it was Doc who pointed it out. It doesn't make any difference to the scoring or anything like that, just a wee mistake on my side. And Doc said, hey, you know, anytime that you want to send the quiz across for me to sanity check it or look for mistakes or whatever you do. So I did that this week. And not only did he check it and say, okay, good quiz, and send it back, he gave me a difficulty rating. And I'll share that difficulty rating a wee bit later with you. But I always say the quiz is going to be an easy one tonight. Perhaps tonight it might not be so easy. Thanks, Doc, for all your help and support. Nice to welcome you in, my friend. Andy C is here. Andy, local Andy, fantastic. Luna Aaron, Anthony Macchio, evening, whiskey folks. Cheers. Anthony, I think that might be a new name as well. Wonderful to welcome you in, my friend. Tell us what's in your glass and where you're located. Just had another, that looks like Magic or Magic. It looks potentially maybe Polish or something, and I know that I'm making a mess of your name, my friend. Lesiak. Maybe if you type it phonetically, it might help me a wee bit. I always feel bad when I don't pronounce names very well, but it's wonderful to welcome you to the Barflies, and thank you for your support. My friend Precarious Dave is here. Helen, of course, Helen and Andy down south. Jimmy Legg. Always wonderful to see you, and Jimmy, always a pleasure to welcome you here. Yash Desai is here. Great to see you, Yash, as well as James McCorran, Everwind. Macon is in, fantastic. Jed Smith. Jed, I hooked up with you briefly on Facebook earlier today. You're putting your name forward for a wee game, a visit to Speyside, and it'd be brilliant to welcome you in one day. You're on the list, my friend. Sachin is here. Good to see you, Sachin. Menno is multi-mission over in Belgium. Carlos San Diego. Hey, Roy, just saying hi before returning to work. I'll be catching the replay tonight, Carlos. Thanks very much for tuning in. Remember, you're working, and maybe keep half an eye on the vPub. Kilco is here. Good to see you, Brian. Ryan Sutherland. Whiskey Central. That's Sheila over in, I think you're back in Mexico now, Sheila. I know you were back home in the States visiting family. Jim Jensen, Jimmy Jazz, so good to see you, my friend. And Arif Musabir looks like another new name. If you are new tonight, if you're joining the vPub for the first time, be wonderful to get to know you a wee bit better, to welcome you. Be wonderful for the Barflies in the lounge here to get to know you as well. So just tell us where you are, what you've got in the glass, what you're sipping, and hopefully the Barflies and the really welcoming, fantastic whiskey folk that are hanging out with us tonight will welcome you there. I'm going to play a wee game of Is It Speyside tonight. I'm a bit delinquent. I've been putting so much effort into the future vPubs. February is taken care of. Everything is locked in for February. Just going to take care of a few finer details, but I'm excited about February already. I'm going to try to bring somebody from the industry every month. I'm going to try to bring somebody, another interesting guest or somebody I know locally, that kind of thing. And then maybe at least one of the vPubs be one of my own kind of topics, something that I'm kind of passionate about or want to share with you and fly solo for a vPub. That's kind of going to be the plan. Let's see how it works out going forward. But February's taken care of, and I get so distracted doing that I completely forgot about the participants for Is It Speyside. I put a post out on Facebook in the Aquaviti Barflies Facebook group. If you're not joined, if you are active on Facebook, you might want to consider joining us in there in the Barflies page. And asked who'd be up for joining me live to play a wee game of Is It Speyside. And we try and guess each other's core range product. And the only prize at stake is a bit of kudos, a bit of bragging rights, and a sniper coin. The sniper coin is can't be bought, can't be purchased like the other coin toppers. that exist around the channel. This one has to be won. You either have to win live or you can win from the lounge as well. So I'm going to welcome in one of the community a wee bit later on who's put his name forward. And I think that may be the only person that's joined us. I did put an invite out to Phil and Deepa cheekily at the last minute. I was watching their live as we were building up to this. I should have been paying attention to this. What a fantastic channel. What a fantastic concept. They're bringing out something completely unique in their live stream. They've taken that whole blind challenge format. The whole channel is founded on whiskey shopping and then testing the whiskey blind. And they've found all sorts of innovative ways to do that. They're trying to be as completely, well, it's whiskey we're talking about. It's difficult to be objective, but they're trying to be as objective as they can be. And they're trying all the whiskies and going into it blow by blow, trying to guess what it is, but deciding how much they like it first, which is the most crucial thing, putting the whiskey on test first. Great fun tonight. I was convinced it was Balblair that was in their glass. All the tasting notes said Balblair. Some other people even guessed Balblair as well, felt it was the similar thing. They were talking about that appley notes, and it wasn't particularly overt in any particular direction. Ended up being about 17 years old, so looked like it could have been the 99 vintage, and they unwrapped it and it was 17 years old, but it ended up being, well, I don't want to spoil it for you in case you watch it on the replay, but it was good fun. So I sent them a wee link just to say if they wanted to drop in, Phil and Deepa. Wonderful company, wonderful people. But they're 8 hours behind us. They may have something else to do. Anyway, let's jump in and have a wee chat with some of you guys. Really want to kind of, I'll go through my list in a second of the whiskies that I am guilty of ignoring or not paying enough attention to. Whiskey Weekend Drama is saying, love to do another, is it a Speyside? That's Harrow. Of course, Harrow was on before with his other countrymen, I think, way back at the start when we did it. But first, the rest of us. Daniel, I shall add, Harrow, I will add your name to the list. And you can come on and do a wee one-on-one session. I know that the last time you were kind of representing a wee bit of a team, but it'd be good to welcome. Anybody can come on a second time, a third time. Of course, it's better to prioritise the people that haven't had a go. But yeah, you're more than welcome to come on and have another wee go, especially if you weren't successful the first time, of course. Matt Bishop is in. Good to see you, Matt. Got to hang out with Matt on a lock-in on Sunday night. Matt and Per Christensen, great fun. Very relaxed night. Wonderful to have welcomed you. Wow, 333 watching now. Excellent stuff. Welcome to everyone. Fantastic. As long as people can keep up with the chat, it does get a bit of a skill. I want to ask, on the subject of Bottleshock, I know it's a thing in wine. I know it's a thing in chilled wine, sparkling wines, red wines, all this thing. Bottleshock. When the wine is transported and it gets to its destination, it's recommended that it's allowed to rest for some time before it's consumed. I am convinced it's a thing in whiskey. I have had sample packs from producers, and some of them will come with a little slip that says, you know, that this has come through the post to you. It's been thrown around. Leave it for a day or two. Let the whiskey settle and rest before you sample it, please. That kind of thing. I don't get a lot of those sample packs through, but when I do get them, the one that swings to mind is the Waterford pack. They ask that I don't interrogate the whiskey until I've given it time to settle. And that kind of struck a chord with me because I've experienced it in the past. When I used to go out and buy a bottle of whiskey and get it home, literally it was barely over the threshold and opened and smelled and tried, and I was just so enthusiastic to try new whiskies that would be a thing. But I think if you're buying it yourself, carrying it home in your car or your bag or whatever, that's not violent. The whiskey's kind of stable and steady. But if it's coming from a courier, if you're buying your whiskies from any of the online providers or even your local retailer in these kind of COVID times, that if it gets delivered to you, it's been thrown around a lot. And a couple of weeks ago, I evangelized heavily about Glenturret 12. I stand by it. I still think it's fantastic whiskey. Mine is almost finished. I'm loving the bottle. And it made me, after reading the malt review score as well, they put the 10-year-old peat smoked at the same score level. So I was curious right away. It was £50 for a 10-year-old peat smoked whiskey at 50% ABV. And I ordered it. And eventually it turned up. And it was back to the old days. I wasn't patient. I opened it straight away. and it was all over the place. It was harsh. It was, maybe it was me. It's often us. It's often as we interrogate these bottles, right? It was harsh. It was all over the place, and I just thought, okay, I don't get this. This tastes like, this is not what I expected. It's not nice. Anyway, I left it. I considered, look, it could be this Bottleshock thing. It could be that. Put it to the side. Left it. Sipping it tonight on my second glass. This is the bottle I'm talking about, Glenturret 10, the peat smoked version. And I have to say, it's very, very nice. It's it's nice and creamy tonight. It's settled down. It's rich and smooth. Lots of peat in it. It is much more overtly peated than you might imagine. I don't know what the peating level is in this, but I would guess it's at least 30, maybe upwards of 30. You could mistake it for being an Islay whiskey, honestly. Although with a bit of time, it's a softer peat, it's a richer thing. There's not lots of kind of medicinal notes in this. There's not lots of sharp brine. But there's a saltiness, and there's certainly a savouriness to this. There are some traits that you would associate with an Islay. But it's not Islay peat. Slightly thinner on the palate than the sherry edition, but not much. It's still quite nice, quite a nice mouthfeel. Soft on the arrival, lots of development and spice on the finish. This is 50% ABV. That plays through, but it doesn't hit you until the finish. There's lots of fruit there as well. What kind of fruit are we finding here? Something quite ripe. Long finish, spiced. This is a decent peated whiskey for £50. Honestly, most of the Islay peated whiskies, especially at cask strength, but okay, it's not cask strength, it's 50%, it's a good ABV. But at 10 years old, Ardbeg, you'd be around about the £50 mark, so it's on par with Ardbeg 10-year-old. This is a nice departure from Ardbeg 10. This would be a nice thing to sip alongside Ardbeg 10. I think it would exaggerate the dryness of Ardbeg, the fresh, briny sootiness of Ardbeg. And I think it would also maybe exaggerate the kind of richer, rounder, sweeter, more aromatic, maybe. Could I say aromatic? Aye, let's go with that. I think it could, Ardbeg could exaggerate that in this. But I wonder, if you've discovered a thing with Bottleshock. Regan Haddock's is saying possibly just a neck pour needed to breathe a little. It was way more. I mean, it was quite an acrid experience. Neck pours, I completely subscribe to. I believe that it's a thing. But yeah, I was wondering if anybody else had found the same thing. Tom Lawrence is saying, "Oh Christ, I wish I could get the Glenturret in the States." It'll come to you, Tom. Especially right now, everything is slowed down, everything is bogged down. I think Glenturret is a big enough release for it to arrive in the States. I would be shocked, honestly, if there wasn't already Glenturret out there in 750ml bottles. I know that the TTB thing has come along more recently and changed that, but I think there'll be Glenturret making its way to the States in good time. Tom, hopefully you'll get a chance to get your hands on it. Dram Mondays is saying nothing gets ignored, more so considered than passed on. Okay, maybe next time Speyburn. Speyburn's a good shout. Speyburn's something that I've seen. You know, there was a time, if I go back 10 years, am I going back as far as 10 years? Maybe 8 years of that order. There used to be a Speyburn in the supermarket, and it was 25 years old. And I think, don't quote me on this, but I seem to remember it between 50 and 60 pounds. It was a Speyburn 25 Solera, and it was available everywhere. And the fact it was 25 years old didn't really... it was just something that I shared and enjoyed and got through very, very quickly and never replaced again. I mean, I think I remember it being nice enough, but not particularly memorable. But this was a 25-year-old Solera, a Speyburn, for very, very inexpensive money. And I think that maybe stuck with me, maybe the idea that it was a cheap whiskey or something. And maybe now that I'm a bit more kind of experienced, maybe I would have taken a lot more time with that whiskey to try and understand it a lot more. And I wonder if I've just kind of ticked the Speyburn box and moved on from it. But we'll talk about Speyburn a wee bit later. Nice to see you in. Callum, you're saying really excited to open the Glenturret 10. It's been sitting for a wee while, so I shouldn't have too much bother. Well, let's hope it's not the neck pour and it is maybe Bottleshock. And then the first dram will be good as well, Callum. Helen is saying worth getting the Glenturret 10 to go outside the 12-year-old. Oh, not sure, Helen. They're completely different whiskies. Might be an interesting thing. That might be interesting to see if you can. I mean, one is extremely peated and one is extremely sherried, European oak sherry. So you might get a bit of Glenturret DNA. I'm not sure. I don't actually feel the need to put any water in this, but I'll put, it's 50%, so it'll probably take water quite well. I'll put a wee drop in and just see how we got along with it. But yes, Bottleshock. Aye, laddie is saying, I always ask myself, how was the whiskey intended by the blender? As how you smell and taste in first glass, or after a dram or two makes you wonder what the blender intended and tasted. And I think that if you heard from Alex Bruce, for example, who was on as a guest last week, and really enjoyed my time with Alex on, he talked about bringing that down and getting to about 46.7, I think they bottled that. And they decided that, okay, we don't want to take it any lower than this. This is at a very good strength. Let's not take it any lower than that. So that was a case where the bottler put it out there at its optimum presentation, let's say. I think often for cask strength releases, maybe for this at 50% ABV, maybe they're just putting something out there that they feel is better appreciated, or it's targeted more towards enthusiasts at higher ABV. And it's intended to be played with a little. It's intended to bring its full power at first approach, everything intact, let's say, and then you can just add water and bring it down little by little by little and see how it switches up, and then see how it plays for you, rather than how somebody back at the lab or the master blender has decided, yes, this whiskey's best at this strength. Whiskey is a very subjective thing, and I think we all like to play with our whiskey a little bit differently. Graham Fraser saying, I have a penchant for worm tub malts, so would love to try an aged Speyburn. I don't think, I'm thinking of worm tubs. Is it Balmainach as well? I think also have worm tubs from Inverhouse. Balblair, no, I don't think so. Pulteney, no. Annoch, don't think so. If you'd spoken to me 3 or 4 years ago, I had all the 16 or 17 distilleries in Scotland that still had worm tubs memorised. You'd think that should stick with me. Jimmy Legg is saying, Graham Fraser, Aquavita, I know he has a 15-year-old. I wonder what you're talking about. Speyburn. That's what you're talking about, because it had you on the ropes, Jimmy. You did win. You took the prize, but is it a Speyside a couple of weeks ago? You guessed Speyburn 15, and I do have it, and I may be approaching it this evening. Nick is saying, Whiskey 101 is saying, I have that Speyburn 25 Solera on my shelf, still closed. I enjoyed it back then and still have one in stock. It's a long time since I last tried it. It was in the original 101 book. I think that's true, the original Buxton book. Probably back when it was available too. I wonder how much you paid for it, Nick. James McGon is saying, Roy, have you sampled the Bladnoch 10 cask strength I sent yet? No, James, I have not. I have the community samples that have arrived in the last few months are kind of sitting here, and it is a sea of samples, if I'm honest. Occasionally I'll sit here on a Zoom call or something like that, some kind of whiskey hangout, and get through these. But it's tricky to get through them. I've just received a wonderfully presented little sample set from Sid. I need to show you this, actually. This is from Sid Martin. And you remember that he'd sent me some samples, but during a giveaway, we gave away some of the samples that he'd sent. And he said, oh, if you give away what you've got, Roy, I'll replace them. And he did that. He sent it up. And it was beautifully presented in this little foam-lined box with his own wax seal on it with a little letter S. And look at these bottles with the same wee stamp in the top. Let's see if I can get that to focus on there. No chance. Oh, yeah, it's kind of trying. Look, he's got a wee S in that one. with a wee wax pull tab here and wax sealed. Nice, really nice. Thank you, Sid. That's a Macallan, a 1977 bottle, 2007 Macallan from Douglas Lane, which is one of the original ones he was replacing. So I haven't sampled the Bladnoch 10 cask strength yet, but Bladnoch may make an appearance tonight. Anybody that's following me on Instagram will see a teaser picture that I put out just an hour or so before the stream to let some people see what I was going to be sharing. Let me go through my list. This is a bit of a confession, if I'm honest. And remember that it's me. Remember that it's the vPub. It's not that I have any particular opinions about these, but I'm aware that I feel I've ignored these distilleries on the vPub over the course of the last 3 or so years. Let's run through them quickly because there's quite a few, 20 of them. Balmeenach, Ben Nevis, Bladnoch, Edredeur, Glenfarclas, Glenglassaugh, Glengrant, Glenrothes, Auchentoshan, Bowmore, Highland Park, Jura, Speyside, Tullibardine, Speyburn, Tormore, Ailsa Bay, Annandale, Glasgow, and Wolfburn. That's 20. That's not exhaustive. There are more. There are also lots of producers out there with core ranges that are bringing something out that I've probably touched upon in the vPub in the past, but they're maybe 43% or 40% presentation or something. They have a place, they're doing something else, maybe some of the Pernod Ricard and Diageo releases and things like that have had airtime. I've specifically gone here because this list, I don't feel it's had much airtime at all. And it's strange to me because there were some on this list and I prioritized some because I had bottles, I had stock on hand. That I had made a conscious effort because I've been aware of this for a long time, or that I could get my hands on at a reasonable price recently to bring in and do it, not an in-depth review or tear down, but just an uncorking. Just share them with you, share first impressions and get some feedback from you guys. What brands do you feel you might be ignoring a wee bit? Orange Wheel Rule is in saying I have the Bladnoch 11 waiting in the wings. That might make an appearance a wee bit later as well, Rule. Most of Bruichladdich and Bunnahabhain core ranges seem like my walk past bottles for some reason. Skogsmard is saying it's bizarre. It's almost like you make a subconscious kind of decision sometimes, and for some reason you just don't pick it up. I was conscious of how little I've connected with Bruichladdich actually is one, but if I go to my cabinet now, there's a few in there. There's at least 2 or 3. There's 2 or 3 on the way out, nearly finished. So that's obviously changed in recent times. But watching that Water of Life film recently made me realize it was very Bruichladdich focused. But I read into that they were almost using that story of Bruichladdich as almost like a metaphor, as the kind of resurgence of Scotch whisky. The story between Mark Rainier and Jim McEwan coming together, how they managed to do so many kind of innovative things. It was dizzying at the start. I remember not being able to keep up with the amount of Bruichladdich releases. That was a real thing, and there didn't seem to be anything kind of consistent coming out there. It was fleeting, and it was a mess. It was just all over the place, and that may have put me off a wee bit back in the day. But as things have kind of rounded out and become much more solid and much more reliable at Bruichladdich, that's changed a lot. And that movie really reminded me of how they were really amongst the distilleries at the leading edge of so many concepts. Cask finishing, natural presentation, talking about barley strains, talking about transparency and traceability, speaking about just playing and, they were using the word innovating back when it was okay to say the word innovating in whiskey. It was a good movie to look back. That movie, anybody could watch that movie if you were into whiskey. If you're a whiskey geek, you might not learn a lot from it, but it's still fascinating to see. But even I could watch that with my wife, and I think that I don't think I can watch it now because it was only streaming for 6 days. But I noticed I think I can go back and watch the interviews. I'm going to hopefully catch some of those. But I think that was very interesting the way they pitched it. It was very Bruichladdich focused, and I don't think there was lots of kind of insight. It wasn't like they get under the nitty gritty things that we go into when I've got a guest on the vPub. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I found it even a little bit humbling and inspiring. I did very much enjoy it. Blair Stevenson is saying Wolfburn is genuinely one of my favourite producers. Wolfburn might get a prominent mention. Whiskey Bowman Chris is saying I've avoided Glasgow distilleries due to them using 50cl bottles and the price. Although I have been told by someone that works there that they're likely to up the bottle size in future releases. The 50cl caught me by surprise. I bought their #1 release and I looked at it and it looks like a 70cl bottle, and especially in its black box. It's got a kind of windowed black box. And it was 50cl. I was surprised, and I paid £100 for that. Luna Aaron saying I actually actively got some samples from distilleries I had never had before. Looking forward to all of them. Perfect discovery. Perfect thing about exchanging samples. Jimmy Legg saying some of those producers are releasing whiskey that has no integrity, says Aquaviti. Well, Jimmy, you know me better than that, and this is the vPub. So the ones that I'm going to share with you tonight from that list of 20, I've got 6 here. There's no way I'm going to get through 6 uncorkings tonight, no way. But notice on the title of maybe didn't put it in the title, but it's on the thumbnail, part 1. I fully intend to kind of revisit this topic as I kind of continue this exploration going forward, because on this channel, it's always about being as open-minded as you possibly. Don't let yourself be blinkered by prejudices and other opinions and preconceptions. Some of you have been loud enough and vocal enough to say, Roy, have you tried this latest from Glasgow Distillery? Have you tried the Bladnoch 10? Have you tried the Glenglassaughs? Have you tried the... And I'm listening, and I'm realizing that this is not a one-way thing. This is not me telling you to try this. There's such a huge, knowledgeable, experienced community out there that you're able to say, Roy, the Glenturret 12 from Stefan Novak, perfect example of that. Came from the community, where I can connect with whiskies that I have been guilty of ignoring. But because of you guys, I have the ability to connect with it. You've got you reminding me. Let's start with one of those bottles that I've just mentioned. I'll give you a wee backstory to it as well. Daniel Herman is saying, I'll try not to be buying a bottle again, better another one to try many whiskies. I wonder what you're talking about, Daniel, but I'll be able to check with you a wee bit later when you're on to play a game of Is It a Speyside? But I mean, that's one of the things that's really cool about the community, is that when you hook up with somebody who you can trust that's got a similar palate to yours, and you start to share and exchange kind of really positive experiences, maybe exchange samples if you can, that's just, it's a really much more valuable way to explore whiskies. To know that when you spend that money on that bottle, not only is it one that you're going to open, but it's one that you're going to be excited to open because you've known already that you've got a positive experience with it. Bruno is saying, what do you think about Legic 10? I really enjoy Legic 10. I think Legic 10, I've thrown, during the recycled reviews, I must have thrown out 3 bottles of Legic 10, maybe even 4. It's a regular in the cabinet. It's always here. It's a good, solid whiskey to have. And I believe it's changed over the years, but I think it's changed for the better to my palate and my experience. I think it's better quality product that's gone in there. And as the years tick by, Legic 10 is becoming richer and more full each year as the years tick by. I think it's been through at least 2 recycled reviews, Bruno, and I do enjoy it very much. A naturally presented product, more or less, as well, but a bit of colour in it. Need to work a wee bit more, but as the maturity of the whiskey comes through, as the colour of the casks are better, it's better stocks, we're going to see less colour, if any colour, added in the future. That's what I hope. Hans Waldman is saying, good to see you, my friend. Good, go for the Glenglassaugh and Glasgow. Oh, recommendations from Hans. Molasses is saying, after seeing Rachel go on about her love of Glenglassaugh during this week's film Q&A, I can't wait to get my hands on a bottle. Annandale and Bladnoch are my local distilleries. Fantastic stuff, says Stephen Gordon. Stephen, I think that might be a new name. Welcome in. especially Annandale for being such a young whiskey. Shame about the price. Shame about the price and the bizarre packaging. It's like a tourist product at way above 60% ABV. It's odd. Bring it down. Give them at 46% ABV. Keep it natural. Put it in the tourist packaging and an accessible ABV. The geek stuff at the high ABV, bring the price down, put it in plain packaging, and we'll connect with it. It's neither meat nor fish. It's an odd thing at Annandale. Multi-Mission has said Glen Grant 10, yes, it's 40% ABV, coloured and chill filtered, but it's like a walk through an orchard and it's very pleasant indeed. I find that to be true of all the Glen Grant releases. They are all very gentle drams, delicate and subtle. I would love Glen Grant to be, when you get Glen Grant from SMWS or an independent, that's Glen Grant. That's how good it can be. It's great in the official bottlings, but it's going mostly to a market that appreciate it at a lower ABV. That's not an enthusiast. I'm not going to knock them for that. I understand what they're doing, but I think Glen Grant can have a lot more to offer if it's a wee bit more naturally presented. I know I bang on about that for everything. Everyone is saying always walk past Bowmore these days, unless someone like Aquaviti recommends that I should take a new look. They have not earned my respect. That's the difference. I walk by because of respect. I continue to connect with Bowmore Everwind. I continue to go back and try it. Bowmore is a legend of a distillery. Legendary for its atrociousness and legendary for its sublime releases. It went through really difficult times. There's a period of Bowmore that's infamous for having a really kind of bizarrely funky, aromatic. Some people know it. I don't want to tell anybody what the FWP acronym stands for, but some people know it as FWP Bowmore. But it went through a time that it was really quite odd, and that was down to changes in production back in the day. I'm speaking about 1980s. Pre-1980s, it was sublime. People talk about the tropical fruit Bowmore, the old Bowmores. We can't connect with that very easily. But occasionally, Bowmore release something like Tempest that gives you a glimmer of that that's really quite good. Some independents are capable of releasing spectacular Bowmore. But the official stuff feels bland, two-dimensional. I don't know if it's colouring. I don't know if it's the way it's bottled. I don't know if it's dilution. I don't know what it is. I keep going back, and I'll continue to go back to Bowmore in the hope that it's going to come back. Jimmy Legg is saying Bowmore is a legend. It's too bad we're not in the legendary period. I think that sums up exactly what I'm talking about, Jimmy. Graham Fraser saying I picked up 37.5 half bottles from the Annandale core range at the distillery. So much more affordable. Getting less whiskey, but at least you can buy it and try it. Absolutely. They did minis as well when I visited. Arthur Leroy is saying some of those you mentioned are great. Glenglassaugh Torfa is one of these bottles I have in Amsterdam, and Glasgow Distillery itself I really disliked. Well, let's see. And Matthias as well is the third person to mention Glenglassaugh. Really tasty, but he's talking about Glenglassaugh 30. That's back in the pre-mothball days, Matthias. You've been sipping at the posh stuff of Glenglassaugh. Let's look at this. This is my second bottle of Glenglassaugh Evolution. I had a bottle of this. No, that's a fib. This is my second bottle of Glenglassaugh. I had a bottle of the Revival, and I'm going back, I don't know, 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago, a long time ago. I had a bottle of Glenglassaugh Revival. It was an on-age statement. Really excited about this Phoenix from the Flames, the rejuvenation at the hands of Billy Walker of his third distillery at that point. He'd been at Binriach and done it there. He brought along Glendronach. Fantastic thing is everybody's celebrating it, and he brings back Glenglassaugh as well. Now, the difference with Glenglassaugh is that there wasn't a lot of immediate stocks for Billy to play with. He had to kind of start from scratch because the gap was so big that the mature stocks were like premium, ancient stocks. So he couldn't do the same thing he'd done at Binriach. He couldn't do the same thing he'd done at Glendronach, and he had to treat Glenglassaugh differently. And he eventually brought this young product onto the market called Glenglassaugh Revival. I happily paid my £40, whatever it was from memory. And I was really excited about it, and I was really disappointed by it. It was presented at 50% ABV back at the time, so it was hot and spirity to me. I was probably a bit more naive back then, if we're going back to maybe 2014, 2013, I'm not even sure. And I thought it was just very, very spirity, and I didn't really get much from it. I did get through the bottle. We drank it. We enjoyed it. But honestly, it wasn't a kind of go back. It wasn't a revisit. It was one that kind of lingered in the cabinet a wee bit too long, I think. Anyway, I have, back in the before times, before we were all in lockdown, a friend of mine, Craig Dollier, who's often in the chat, he'd been at a vertical tasting, a subsidised tasting at Clydeside Distillery, and it was the Glenglassaugh tasting. I'm uncorking this Glenglassaugh right now. And he said, look, he said, I bought this. He said, I really like it. And I looked at it and I said, oh, Glenglassaugh, okay, I'm interested. And he let me try this. And I immediately, and I'm going back 2 years, at least 2 years, let me try this creamy, wonderfully creamy, wonderfully fruity, elegant whiskey. And I said, Glenglassaugh, are you sure? He said, aye, absolutely. Now, the Revival is Oloroso, sherry cask finished. The Torfa, as has been mentioned here, is peated. It's very light peat, but there is peat in there. And this is their Evolution. This is their, again, 50% ABV, natural colour, unchill filtered, no age statement on it. But we've got a bit more of a handle of the age on this. And as Glenglassaugh goes on forward, it's more mature whiskey that's going to make it into the glass each time. Now, of course, we're at neck pour here. This is an uncorking. This is not a review. This is a first impressions only, and that's all you can do is take a bit of first impressions. Spirit forward, but very creamy, very almost floral. There's not much fruit there just now. It's kind of a green apple note, but it's just out the bottle. I'm not going to cover that glass. I'm going to put it to the side, and we can come back and visit it in a few moments. Tom Lawrence is saying, Jimmy Jazz, the Aquavita Blind Challenge sounds daunting, but it makes me think about putting together my own tasting. And Jason Whiskey Wise is saying, good evening, good to see you in, Jason, and good evening all just back home from work. Good for you, Jason. I know you've been working really hard. Hey, Jason Whiskey Wise recently started putting out content again on his YouTube channel, and I've reached out to him to suggest that he should come on and join us for a wee game, a visit at Speyside, and he said, aye, okay, so we'll maybe see Jason on the channel soon. What are the cask types evolved in that evolution one, Roy? Well, interestingly, Greg, thank you for asking me. This is my style of whiskey, generally speaking. I think if I was to pick between a sherry and a peated, and I would go for the ex-bourbon matured. And that's what this is. It actually says on here, and this is down to the ownership, so the labelling has changed a wee bit since Brown Forman took over. Ex-Tennessee cask matured. Now, I wonder what Tennessee casks those could be if it's Brown Forman, right? So I'm actually starting off with something that I've got quite a high expectation of. I don't know why it took me so long, even after having that hammer blow demonstration around my dining table here with a friend saying, try this, and me loving it. It took me so long to pick it up, despite it being freely available everywhere. But it sounds like a lot of you knowledgeable folk have already it's like white flowers, very floral, very clean, super clean, spirity, sweet, clear honey. And a creaminess, just a nice kind of creamy, approachable, light spirit. David Owen is saying, is it me or has Legic 10 got darker recently? No, it's not you. It absolutely has. It's okay. I don't know that for absolute fact, but it's my feeling too, David, that it has. And I hope that that is absolutely down to better or much more active casks rather than anything else, David. I'm sure you hope the same thing. I'm going to just go in. There's quite a few bottles to get through tonight, so forgive me for rushing these. I will come back to them. Nice clear honey. Oh, works well with the ABV. What you think is going to be a very nice, delicate dram. It arrives nice and delicate. Lots of that floral thing. lands on the palate. The ABV brings all that grip. There's a nice texture to it. It's not overly oily or coating, but there's a nice mouthfeel. Spice. Some creaminess and vanilla. The honey is there. Floral thing. I'm looking for that fruit. I'm really not getting much more than a kind of appley, green apple. Kind of short finish, medium short finish. I think as this bottle stays open, especially at the ABV, I think this is going to become quite a creamy treat of a dram. Put a wee bit of water in it. Again, 50% ABV. Knur is asking us if there's any, is it wine in that Glenglassaugh? A lot of people mention tropical fruit, but it's whin for me. Whin? Wine? The fruit's not opened up yet. It's very orchardy to me tonight. Maybe you'd give it kind of pears and syrup or something at the most. Not very, it's not overtly fruity. Neck pour. Okay, a wee bit more fruity now. Spices, prickled up white pepper. A wee bit of water. Just kind of woken the glass up a wee bit there, even more. What's the fruit then? Syrupy. Maybe a bit of tropical fruit, a little bit of saccharine sweetness on the finish now. Spirity finish. Created by maturing a whiskey in a unique combination of the finest hand-picked Tennessee first fill whiskey barrels. The result is a superbly well-balanced single malt. This is achieved through the perfect marriage of maturing Highland malt whiskey and traditionally charred American oak casks. Non-chill filtered and bottled at natural colour, Evolution represents the heart of Glenglassaugh, distinctive personality, and indeed the landscape in which it is set. I can't remember what I paid for this bottle, honestly. I think it was about £40. 50% ABV presentation. It says natural colour, non-chill filtered on the bottle. We can guess that probably the whiskey in here is a 7-year-old, 8-year-old of that order. It certainly plays like that on the palate. Kind of pleased, even at first approach, that I have this. I think I'm going to get to know this a wee bit better as it stays open. This is a good one to start with. Glenglassaugh, I'm pleased, but I know that I've had that experience that I mentioned before with the bottle that my friend Craig managed to get through, and as we shared it, it was one that I got to cherish. In fact, I'm pretty convinced he left me the last of the bottle. And I think that was the thing, that when I finished the last of the bottle, that was the final push. Just buy a bottle, Roy. Just get a bottle. So there we go. First one of the night. Glenglassaugh, another fine one for the ever-growing shopping list. And I know, Helen, that's the problem, and that's not what I mean to do. But the thing is that tonight I'm sharing things with you that are core range, widely available. You don't need to go out and buy this now. Add it to a list, a little mental note, whatever it is, and consider it. But what you might want to do is wait a wee while. If I'm playing with this and based on our neck pour and just uncorking, this is an uncorking tonight. It's not really a reliable review. Graham Fraser is saying, an homage to Roddy, have your Royal Brackla in your choices tonight, Noy. Royal Brackla has not made it to the list because they have a core range, especially in their, what is it, a 12-year-old, or is it 10, a 12 or a 10, I can't remember, 16-year-old, 40% ABV, wonderful whiskey that just leaves you wanting. You know, Royal Brackla, we really struggle to get a hold of cast strength Royal Brackla. We really want to know what it tastes like. And if we can have it cast strength, at least give it to us natural at 46%. And don't put your whole... Glenglassaugh is not pitched at me as an enthusiast. It's pitched at the much wider market where ABV is a barrier. It's a gift whiskey. It's a precious whiskey. It's a smooth whiskey. And for me, that Raw Brackla 16-year-old, I paid £120 for it or something at an airport. Coming back from holiday, maybe not that much, but it was certainly 100. And I never felt like I got my value for money out of it. I probably should have paid attention to the fact it was 40% before I did that. Somebody's bought me a dram and I haven't mentioned them. Let me correct that. Gary Cobb, my friend. Thanks for the vPubs, Roy. Sorry, can't watch it all live tonight, but we'll catch up on the replay. Gary, thank you very much for your virtual dram. And you're also on the list for a future game of Visit Speyside. So I hope it's on a night that you can sit and join us for that. Cheers, Gary. Thanks for the dram. Very clean. White pepper. Nice, contemplative, fresh, clean whiskey to start. Let's move on to the second one. Where should I go here? I've got 6 here now. I'm just going to prioritise. Okay, I'll go with your lead. I know some people have been asking for this. You've been asking me to connect with this for about 6 months and I've been ignoring you. Or I haven't been ignoring you, I just haven't got around to it. And I missed the opportunity with their 10-year-old. I missed it. And it's a shame. The reason I missed it is because of the price. This is an expensive whiskey. It was certainly expensive for a 10-year-old. I'm talking about Bladnoch. 10-year-old was £52, and it always just kind of put me off a bit. But the more and more people that connected with it, the more the community that fed back to me and said, Bladnoch, Bladnoch, Bladnoch. Anyway, by the time I got around to it, 10-year-old's sold out. It's still available. It's still out there. Lots of people raving about it, really loving Bladnoch 10-year-old. Depending on where you are in the world, you'll still be able to get the 10-year-old. It was a fairly large-scale release from a fairly small distillery, a distillery that's kind of had a very, very patchy history. But it's in good hands now. It's owned by David Pryor, who I believe to be Australian. And at the helm, after a brief stint, a couple of years under the helm of who I believe to be very talented, Ian McMillan, it's now in the hands of Nick Savage, who's ex-Macallan. So what we're seeing now is Nick's releases from stocks that were manipulated or massaged a bit or brought on, recast by Ian McMillan. So hopefully what we're going to see at Bladnoch is a bit more investment, a bit more tender loving care, and just kind of brought forward a wee bit into being that kind of what used to be seen as the queen of the lowlands. Now a lot of distilleries, St. Magdalene and Rosebank, and there's lots of ones that were queen of the lowlands. But I've heard it said about Bladnoch, and I've had some old Bladnochs from the Armstrong days that were magical, absolutely magical Bladnochs. Even that really light, delicate lowland style, but in a sherry cask, magical. And then I've had some that were just completely, I don't even know why they made it into a bottle, honestly. Bizarrely inconsistent. Some of really the unpleasant whiskey experience from independents, from cheaper bottlings, I admit, back in the day, were Bladnochs as well. It's been kind of all over the place. This is their 11-year-old. Fantastic presentation, 46.7% ABV. This is a 2020 release, 11-year-old. It says on the label non-chill filtered. I'm sure it says natural color as well. This is bourbon cask matured. I know this to be bourbon cask matured. I'm sure I caught something about natural color too. I think also Ralphie has reviewed this quite recently as well, and I think he was quite pleased with it. Going from memory, I meant to watch Ralphie's review before tonight. Multi-Mission Menno is saying, we all know what happens when multiple queens try to reign over Scotland. It wasn't pretty. And that was just the lowlands, Menno. Anyway, let's pour a wee. Let's see if this glugs. It looks like a kind of bottle that would glug. Just a wee bit. Again, neck pour. Don't look for scores. Don't look for reviews. Don't look for in-depth reviews or critique of the whiskey. It's just immediate reaction. I'm going right off a very pale, clean, light, young, spirity Glenglassaugh. It's quite tight and shy. It's not. I need to leave this. Just getting a dusty vanilla from it just now. I just need to leave it in the glass, let it open up and breathe a wee bit. Greg is saying, no, it is not stated as natural colour. Maybe you've got a bottle on hand. Rule is saying, be careful not to spill the Bladnoch. The bottle design is pish. Nice use, sorry, Rule, of the Scottish vernacular, my friend. Superb. Whisky Weekend Dram Harrow is saying the Bladnoch 10 is great aquavitae. The wine finish is not so. 17, too much sulphur for me. Aye, they were a bit pricey. The Adela was 15 years old or something. I remember that being a bit expensive. Samsara was the one I tried, and it was in this new packaging. And it didn't blow me away. I didn't love it. It was a friend of mine close to me that bought it and was quite excited to share it with me. And the two of us were left a wee bit, oh, okay, it's fine. He was quite happy to have it, but he wasn't blown away. But now that Bladnoch's starting to shape itself, now that these age statements are coming out, it's quite curious, an 11-year-old age statement. Should it stayed at 10 and been just a new batch, a 2020 batch of the 10-year-old? No, I think it's fine to change year by year. They're actually writing on the label 2020 release, so it's fine. Just put the age on it. The problem here with this 11-year-old is where I was reluctant to buy the 10 at £52. This is £10 more expensive for that extra year. This is a £62 release. So this wee bottle of Bladnoch has got a lot of work to do, hasn't it? Because we're not judging it as a 10 or 11-year-old product anymore. We're judging it as a 60-odd pounds bottle. And for 60-odd pounds, it's up against a lot of competition. Matthias is saying, I bought the Samsara 2 to 3 years back, did not connect with it, would love to try some other expressions after you recommended some of them, but nothing really available here. Matthias, I might get to you in the States. I know, my friend, it's... I hope the supply chain sorts itself out. Tariffs, Brexit, just nonsense, putting barriers in the way. Anyway, Greg is saying it's not stated natural. Thank you, Greg. I got that one earlier. Frank is saying the Bladnoch 11 is not marked as having colour in Germany, so it seems to be natural. And in Germany, it's got to have that. Stefan Novak is in tonight. Good to see you, Stefan. He's saying my epiphany bottle in 2020 was a 26-year-old Bladnoch from Cadenheads. That's Bladnoch from the old days, absolutely. Liquid poetry, absolutely beautiful old style, very light and complex Lowlander. I've got some signatory old vintages of 1990s Bladnoch. Is it 1990s? Maybe late 80s. And it's one that you have to be careful when you sip it. It's so subtle and quiet. It's like a really old Anok that I tried recently, a 30-year-old SNWS Anok. Really quiet, but give it the right time, give it the right moment. Oh my goodness, it's like that Bladnoch. Just flowers and light white fruit and flowers and light ginger spice and then flowers. Like it's a dream of a whiskey. Old style, very light and complex Lowlander, Stefan is saying. And Ben Marnick is saying they're getting good reviews, but boy, do they scrimp on the samples at the distillery. Really disappointing when you make the long journey down there, says Ben. Lovely, sitting next to the river. We've got a brand new visitor centre opened up. I've yet to go and visit it. I'm unable to visit anything like you guys are now, but I'm keen to go. Fastcraft is saying the Bladnoch 11 is not marked as having. Okay, I'm doubling up here is because the jumping chat. Apologies, Frank. And Reb is in. Good to see you, Reb. I'm waiting on the Bladnoch 11 to arrive in Israel. Tell me, can you see the KLBD kosher certification on the label? Reb, I wouldn't even know what to look for, my friend. But I can tell you that it's exclusively ex-bourbon, and it does say that on the label. I don't know if that can somehow... Ooh. Reb, I think I found it. Is this what you're looking for, my friend? Right down there under where it says bladnoch.com. I think that is probably what you're asking about. So it's there. Cheers, Reb. Nice to welcome you in, my friend. Cheers. Ah, that's a good whiskey. Neck pour, okay, it's uncorking. This is a good whiskey. So this is my style of whiskey, definitely. Still a lot of spirit going on here. Still a lot of kind of bright, clean, vibrant. But there's a lovely mature note to this. There's a dusking to it. There's a depth and a richness. It's exclusively ex-bourbon. There's oak there. You can taste the oak, but it's not climbing all over the whiskey. This is how can delicate and rich be the same thing? It's a delicate whiskey, but it's a rich development. There's a nice mouthfeel. The finish is much longer than I expected. The nose was so tight. Still quite tight. It just must be just because it's just opened. Some richer honey, caramelly toffee, syrup. But there's a dustiness. There's you're thinking of some kind of peanut shells or something dusty. Excellent. Really delicious. Nothing broken or wrong or difficult to find anything to criticize. Lovely. The sweet goes through the light spice, very lightly spiced, like a light ginger. Then it goes into light, dry bitterness and a nice long but sweet finish. This is a good whiskey. Is it 60 quid whiskey? Maybe. Maybe. Okay. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to keep qualifying my reaction tonight. I'm opening these bottles. This is an uncorking. This is a first impression. But Bladnoch, that's a good first impression. I bet you I made a mistake not pulling the trigger on the 10-year-old. Anthony Dunn has bought me a dram to say, love to sample more, but since Brexit, no imports for Northern Ireland. That's brutal, Anthony. It's just a mess. What are we doing? Why are we undoing? And a whiskey malt content as well, saying a wee dram to you, my friend. Cheers. Let's hold up a wee dram to Anthony and to whiskey malt content. I'm forgetting your name now. It's malt content. Oh. That'll come to me a wee bit later, my friend. Maybe I'll ask you to remind me. Thank you both for your virtual drams. Cheers. This is the type of whiskey that makes me so happy of how Scotch matures in ex-bourbon casks. Massimo Tangerini is in saying ciao Roy from Italy. Ciao Massimo. So good to see you. So good to welcome you in here, my friend. I do have a few Italians watching me, although some of them used to be colleagues of mine. It's wonderful to have you here. Love Italy. I absolutely love Italy. There aren't many countries I don't love, to be honest with you. That is impressive. That Bladnoch is impressive. That's a good whiskey. I'm already fired and inspired about things that I could do with that in terms of blinds, in terms of sampling and sharing with people. I'm struggling to think of something that it reminds me of. It's not overly fruity or floral or in any direction. It's just a good. There is a richness to it. There is a maturity. There is a duskiness to it, almost not quite dunnage, but something that suggests something mature. Where the Glenglassaugh is all kind of vibrant, white, crisp apples. That kind of. No, it's the creaminess is still the. Roberto Matteo, ciao Massimo, my friend from round the corner, also Italian. Good to see you, buddy. Good to have you. Speaking to Massimo, excellent stuff. This is the Glenglassaugh is much creamier and lighter and fresher. I have to say on the nose, that doesn't play like a 50% ABV, the Glenglassaugh. It's the creaminess and the spirit seems quite mellow to me. I know I'm cracking through these at an alarming rate, but I want to get on and play a wee game of Visit a Speyside for everyone. And I'm going to go in a different direction altogether. I'm going to go right up the top of the country, and I'm going to talk about a distillery that again, like the Glenglassaugh, I bought a bottle some years ago. kind of touched it, played with it, hung around for a little while, and I didn't really feel the need to run back and replace it again. All hail the trader support services, the ENS Safety and Security JB, says Ben Marnock, the Trusted Trader Scheme, the GVMS and GMR. Oh yes, the EMCS arc to get to the port. Frictionless trade. I detect heaps of sarcasm from you, my friend. Good to see you, and Ronnie. It's always great to have you here. Vlad, there you go. Whiskey Malt Content. How could I forget an epic name like Vlad? Whiskey Malt Content. It's great to have you in. Cheers from Birmingham. Good to have you, and thank you for your dram. But the original bottle I bought from this distillery was their inaugural, back before inaugural was a sexy thing, right? It was just kind of like, oh, why would we buy from a new distillery? Now that's completely changed. The collectors have come in and everybody's scrambling to try new whiskies from new distilleries. But these guys were just a wee bit too early for their own good, I think. And what's so amazing about this distillery is it's famous for being built in like a few weeks. If you think of some distilleries and how long it takes to get them built and get them flowing spirit and things like that, I mean, literally this distillery in the very, very north of mainland Scotland managed to do it in a matter of weeks. Literally, I think it was less than 2 months. I don't think it's a pretty distillery to look at, but I've not actually seen it myself. It's on an industrial estate just outside of Thurso. And of course, I'm speaking about Wolfburn. This is their Morven release. I was drawn to this one because of the lightly peated nature of it. My perfect, if I could envisage a perfect Highlander, it would be a kind of lightly peated style. Like I say, the inaugural I felt was just too young, a bit sharp. It was peated, or the spirit wasn't peated, but it was matured in ex-Isla casks. So it was a peated release. So they could get away with, to a certain extent, that young spirit because it was a peated thing. You might remember, if you go back 4 years, Scotch for Dummies loved that Morven release. They really loved it. And I think they loved how accessible it was and how well priced it was. Oh, wow. Some peat aromas. Now, if I stick my nose in a glass, I can miss peat. But there's clearly some nice, quiet aromas coming out of the bottle. So let's pour a wee bit of this Wolfburn lightly peated Morven, natural colour, clear big letters on the label, non-chill filtered, clear big letters on the label, much the same as Glenglassaugh then in presentation, and at 46%, a few ABV lighter. Nice bottle noise. No age statement, but the interesting thing about Wolfburn now is that I think they started running spirit back in, I don't know, 2012, 2013. They've been around 7-8 years or that order now. So theoretically, they're building up stocks. There's depth coming to their stocks, and that should be playing out into their whiskies. And I've started to hear some people get really quite excited about a couple of the releases. The Morven is lightly peated. They do another couple of releases as well. I think the Aurora is unpeated, and the Northland is slightly more peated. Don't quote me on that. That's the way I understand the range. Okay. Bruno is asking if I'm anxious about Isle of Raasay. I'm a wee bit anxious, honestly. I love what's happening at Isle of Raasay. I love what the team have put together out there. I love their ideas of what they're going to do. I got to try some samples. Very vibrant, very fruity, very spirity, though. I didn't buy an inaugural. I didn't even get involved in trying to find one. I'm hoping that one will just kind of come across my path, maybe, or a sample of it or something like that. But I haven't tried it yet. We ask a lot of these whiskies, you know, even if they're designed to be sold at a quite young age because of how they've been, how the production or the distillation, the cut points, the maturation, the active casks, whatever it may be, in order to make it a proposition for a young whiskey. We're asking a lot of the whiskey, and I think we need to be a wee bit patient of it. And I'd like to spend a wee bit more time getting my head around Drassy and a lot of these whiskies. I mean, look at the mistake I made with Glenglassaugh and Wolfburn. I've not gone back. And I think that was because these were young whiskies, but they're older now. This is very similar to Glenglassaugh in a lot of ways, this Wolfburn. Let's see if it plays out in the glass. So the smoke has kind of dissipated a wee bit. I'm not getting so much smoke now. This is lightly peated, but it's overtly vanilla. Vanilla pods even, some dough, some yeasty notes, some dough, some bread, some cereal, some malty, something vaguely savoury, and a wee bit of golden syrup, but vanilla. The most overt thing, the forward thing is a vanilla for me. Wow, clearly much more mature. Look at these drams that I'm missing here. Sorry, friends. I've got a dram that's come in from Peter Eichen as well down in Australia. Got to run, Roy. Catch the remainder on the replay as always. My friend, I'm so glad that it's come up 3 times as if to remind me. So glad that you were able to drop in. I know that you pick it up on the replay, Peter, and it's nice to have you dropping in even just to say hello. But the fact you're buying me a wee bit of a dram is even more amazing. Peter, I know that there's an idea that if we can get the timing right, you'd like to come on and play a wee game. I visit a Speyside too in the future, and I look forward to that, my friend. I know I'm delinquent on a package for you, but it's on its way. I've got 4 reminders in about that dram from you. Peter Slancha, nice to have you in, my friend. Cheers. This is softer and not nearly as sharp. This is a much more mature thing. This is weightier. The peat is very light. It's not overly rich. It's not asking for a lot of attention. It's not particularly complex, I don't think. It's just a nice, clean, creamy, slightly peated, clean vanilla, malty. It's not spiced. It's not particularly vibrant. It's just quite clean. There's not anything jagged about this, which there's clearly still young whiskey here. I am again once more very happy that I bought this. This is 3 whiskies that I have ignored and walked past, and I want to talk about why. Why is it that I ignore these? Why is it that I'm not connected with these whiskies? Because they're all intriguing. They're all very good, and none of these are special editions. None of these are crazy difficult to get a hold of. I know it depends very much on where you are, but with the exception of the Bladnoch at 11 years old and £60, they're relatively affordable as well, the Glenglassaugh and the Wolfburn. Hoyt has bought me a dram and said virtual dram from the new bar. I saw a wee picture of your new bar, Hoyt. You should share that in the Barflies page on Facebook. Looking fine, my friend. Maybe wait till you get your rug down and you get your bottles in there. But Hoyt, it's always nice to welcome you in, my friend. I hope you're doing well, and thank you for the dram. Cheers. Not overly complex at first approach. Quite clean and obvious and simple. Very approachable. So the salt here is quite saline, definitely. Wow. The peat leaves its mark as it steps off on the finish. But this is a neck pour. Again, it's one of those ones that's going to develop. It's going to just relax and settle a wee bit. It's just going to round out in the open bottle, I think. It's not overly complex to my palate. It's quite again, clean and creamy. Wolfburn. I think that I'm not going to give any of these a score, and I'm not even going to rank them tonight because, as I've admitted, this is an uncorking. But I think so far my favourite, the one that's jumped out the glass at me, has been the Bladnoch. Just as well, it's by far the most expensive. Clean creaminess of that Glenglassaugh is quite intriguing. This one I think is good for, this is a perfect example of a whiskey that you might pour for somebody who's not really enjoying peat yet, who's still trying to get their head around peat and what it can do and what it can bring, how peat can be a nice seasoning, a nice flavour enhancer for malt whiskey. What are you saying? Cheers. Drew from Arizona is saying, if there isn't a coin term for swallowing a cast strength down the wrong way, there needs to be one. Just had the pleasure. I do it myself. I'm really nervous, Drew, about the day that I do it on air, that I do it live, that I just go like, and it catches and it goes the wrong way and I start coughing and look like a silly amateur. I am an amateur, of course, but I don't want to make it blindingly obvious to everyone that I am. Anyway, let's take a wee break. I've still got some whiskies to share with you. If we've got some time, we'll dip in and share at least another one. And there's lots more time to kind of approach these going forward and continue this journey of kind of whiskies that I tend to ignore. It's my job to kind of share and try and dig up and discover things that you might enjoy, things that you might want to connect with. But we'll see how we got on with this. In the meantime, I've got a guest sitting in the background that I reached out to at very, very short notice and asked if he wanted to come on and gamble and have a wee game of, is it a Speyside? It's always a bit of fun to have these games, and I'd like to get a wee thumbs up from my friend to see, is it okay, he can hear me and he can come in, and I'll welcome my friend from Switzerland, Daniel. Daniel Herman, how are you? Good to put a face to the name. We've got to know you in the lounge over the last few months, my friend, but it's nice to welcome you behind the bar at the vPub. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great.
Fantastic.
Hopefully as well.
Are you nervous at all? Are you feeling quite confident? Do you play along with this in the lounge? Do you play along?
I play along, but I'm very bad.
Oh, you're bad at it. Okay, so you've not won yourself
bad
a
at
coin
the
yet.
game, so I never was going any near. Usually at the fourth question I'm out, and no idea.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you the option in a wee minute. Well, first I'll ask you, I know that you're from Switzerland, but where are you in Switzerland? Near any?
Near Aarau.
City?
So it's the north part of Switzerland.
In the north part of Switzerland?
Yes, Aarau.
Aarau?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my best effort at pronouncing that. Are you near the mountains then? I take it everywhere in Switzerland is near mountains.
Yeah.
No,
Switzerland is small, so
yeah,
an hour to the mountains.
So are you bordering, where are you bordering? Germany to the north?
Yes.
Okay, closer to Germany then. Fantastic. Good. What have you got in the glass tonight, Daniel? What are you sipping?
I have a Highland Park.
You don't need to tell me if it's going to give me any clues as to what was happening tonight.
No, that's my glass tonight. And it's not a orange.
It's, well, it is now, isn't it?
It's now?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's going to be a regular, but there was certainly a huge release recently of the cast strength. Are you enjoying it?
Yes, it's my second pour, and the first one was not what special. Second one is better. I added quite a drop of water now, and it's getting better.
Fantastic. And never judge a whiskey on the neck pour. Never do what I'm trying to do tonight, right? You always have to give whiskey time.
I have a full bottle to enjoy, and explore.
That's right. There's lots of time. There's a journey ahead to enjoy with it. Okay, my friend. Let me ask you: Am I guessing tonight, or are you guessing? It sounds like I'm going to be guessing, right?
I hope you're guessing.
That's okay. That's okay. So that means that you have a bottle on hand, and you have a bottle of
there is one
a
here.
core range single malt Scotch whiskey that's generally available everywhere. And I've got 10 questions. Actually, I'm handicapped now, am I not? I'm down to 9 questions now. And you're playing for an exclusive sniper coin. And everybody in the lounge can play along as well. And the first person to guess what whiskey Daniel is hiding off screen based on my yes or no questions, he can only answer yes or no. The first person to guess also snags themselves a wee sniper coin. Are you ready, my friend?
Yes.
Let's bring in this countdown to help me keep track. I'll use a timer. I have been using a timer recently. I'll try it tonight at 3 minutes. I'll start the timer now, bring up 10 questions. I'll wish myself good luck as I take away my handicapped 9. And thank you, Daniel. Thank you. And I'll start off by saying, Daniel, is it a Speyside?
Yes.
Oh, we're in Speyside. Okay. Is it owned by one of the big 4? Is it owned by Diageo, Pernod Ricard, Edrington, or Grants?
Yes.
Okay. Does it have an age statement?
Yes.
Okay. Is it owned by Diageo?
Yes.
Is it 12 years or younger?
Yes.
I've made a wee note of what I think it could be. Is it 12 years old?
Yes. Only yes.
Right, just to eliminate, is it flora and fauna?
I don't know.
Okay, so you know it's not flora and fauna then. The beige labels with it. It's not a beige label with a...
No.
Right, okay, so it's not flora and fauna. So I think we're at Cardew, Cragganmore, Royal Lochnagar, one of the Singletons, maybe Glendillon, Dufton. Oh wow, there's quite a lot. Kevin, I can do, maybe not. Haha. Is it a Glen?
Nope.
Right, okay. I'm struggling now. It's 12 years old. Is it Royal Lochnagar?
Nope.
Last guess. Everything is gone. It's all resting on this. It's Cragganmore, Cardew, Nacandu, Singleton.
You mentioned it.
Of course. Is it Cragganmore 12? It's Cardew. Oh no.
This was a recent supermarket pick, and I find it quite enjoyable. So I never heard of it.
Did you get it? 40,
yes.
40?
It's a 40.
40, yeah. Yeah.
So
Diageo,
it's simple but enjoyable. So it's not a very complex one, but I like it. So it's in contrast to the High Park on the opposite scale of of complexity.
Yeah, but definitely core range, one of the best-selling malts in Spain, Cardew 12. Infamously, it was so popular back in the early 2000s that they that they started to sell Cardew, and it wasn't Cardew in the bottle. You might remember the labelling controversy that they had back in the day.
Yes, I read it.
Yeah, pure malt was the term that they put in the bottle.
Correct.
But yes, you caught me out, my friend. I lose tonight.
Yeah,
You
I
win
intentionally picked that for the theme tonight because you say about the ignored ones, and it looks so ignorable on the shelf in supermarket.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it is, and it's guilty of me ignoring it, generally speaking. But what I tried to do tonight was find brands that I am ignoring, despite the fact that they're bringing me what I'm asking for in terms of natural presentation. Better ABV, more engaging product. If they say natural color on the label, so much the better. But certainly non-chill filtration and a decent ABV, that's what I've tried to go for. Ones that are shouting at me that I should be connecting with, and yet I still seem to be cruising past them, whereas Cardew is pretty ubiquitous. It's one of those kind of gateway whiskies, I suppose we could call them, and I mean that in the best possible sense. Macallan Fine and Rare, the doc is saying Aquavitae. I wrote Cardew 12 before the game even started.
I read it and I had to not answer.
Suppress the gag reflex for the dog.
Yes.
The doc getting it before we'd even started. Rich Hull is saying, unlucky. You do so well every time. Hats off. Nah, I get caught there, Richard. I get caught. Jimmy Legg is saying, I'm emailing you my spreadsheet now, Roy. No, Jimmy. Don't worry about it. I don't mind how many coins I give away, and I don't mind how many times I lose. The point is that it's fun. Makes us think about the whiskey landscape, the geography. It makes us think about what's core range and what isn't. Makes us maybe remember some products like Cardew that we don't bring up from time to time, maybe some of the ones that are a wee bit ignored. So that's the intention of this. If I'm using a spreadsheet to do this, it's no fun. I'm doing it wrong.
It would feel cheating.
Aye, you could argue. You could definitely argue that, Daniel. Listen, my friend, if you're up for it at the quiz at the end, if you want to stay, hang around and come back, I'm not going to put you under pressure. Wonderful, you've got that. You are going to play along. Really nice to welcome you back. It's nice to put a face to a name, my friend. And you caught me out. Well done, Daniel.
Thank you.
I'll see you in a few minutes, my friend. Thank you. Cheers.
See you in a minute.
Beaten. Cardew 12. Daniel wins himself a wee sniper coin. It looks like Doc might have got himself one of these coins as well. Let's see. And Macallan Fine and Rare is saying, my coin goes to Mark Slinger. Okay, let's make a note of that. So I remember, I haven't seen Alistair Gray in tonight. He might be in tonight. It's usually Alistair that helps me run that. We use a Speyside spreadsheet to keep track of everything. But Doc has given his coin to my friend up in Speyside, Mark Slinger. Cheers, Doc. Cheers, Mark. And well done, Daniel. Well done. I think we've got time for me to at least share one other ignored bottle with you before we disappear. We might even go for two. Let's see where I go here. Let's talk about something that came up earlier on in the stream. Let's talk about this distillery here. Now, from a distance, this looks like a 70 cl bottle. I think it's got some quite nice textured glass. It's tall, slim, quite prominent, but this is a 50 cl bottle. I didn't know about that when I bought it. This is the release number 1. I've had this a couple of years now, I think. So Glasgow has been putting out whiskey for at least a couple of years. I think 2018 was their first release. Don't quote me on that. I'm going from memory. This is 46% ABV. Matured in first fill ex-bourbon casks and finished in virgin oak. Obviously, it's young whiskey, so they're trying to bring on quite an active cask. It says non-chill filtered on the label. I believe it to be natural colour. I don't know if it states it anywhere. It might say it on this ridiculously small text on the back. Come on, boys. It's no good for folk of my age. And here we go. The branding on the front. It does say non-chill filtered down here. 50 cl bottle, 46% ABV. This is the inaugural. I'm not going to open this because I have tried this. I bought the bottle and it was at Glasgow Whisky Festival. They were a very big part of the Glasgow Whisky Festival, being Glasgow Distillery, of course. And there was lots of this going around. So I've tried this. I've tried this on a few occasions. And it's young whiskey. There's no bones about it. It's young. It's quite rich. So you've got that play of really loud spirit and really loud cask. and never the twain shall meet. Might need to stay open in the bottle a wee while before it starts to integrate a wee bit better, or fight over itself a wee bit less. That was my impression, and I'm going back quite a wee while. So I wanted to check what their core range was. They're bringing out naturally presented product. It's not expensive stuff, given the fact that it's a fairly new distillery on the scene, and there's lots of it around. And they've expanded the range since. So what I did instead is I picked up one of these wee things. This is available. Don't ask me where I bought this. I either bought it from Whisky Exchange or Master Malt or one of the online retailers. It was 20 quid. And I got to have a wee box of their core range, let's say. This is not a big distillery out in Glasgow. It's on an industrial estate out in Hillington. I think it's been going about, let's say 5, maybe 6 years now. 2015, I think it started, of that order. I was really excited about it because this was distilling back in Glasgow after, I think, over 100 years of absence since a new distillery had been built in Glasgow. Or let's say a new purpose-built malt distillery. I know that there have been distilleries in and around Glasgow that have been like Inverleith and up in Dumbarton, and oh my goodness, I need to remember the one that was in Strathclyde. Super expensive, super rare. It's like, I want to say Killyloch, but it isn't Killyloch. I think it starts with a K. Kinclaith. I think that's right. Kinclaith was a Glasgow distillery. No, I'm suddenly down it now. Not Kinclaith. Don't quote me on it. There was a distillery inside. It's Kinclaith. It was inside Strathclyde, malt distillery. It was only open for about 20 years, from the 50s to the 70s. There are still bottles and casks of Kinclaith floating around, but it's so rare that people are kind of, when one comes along, people really pay attention, because it's not to do with the quality, it's just to do with the rarity of the whiskey. But then Glasgow got its own distillery again out in Hillington with these guys. They'd started this distillery out there. And then shortly after that, we've got the Clydeside that's opened, and it's been running for a few years now down in Clydeside. And Clutha is still hopefully going to happen at some point. I wonder what the latest thing with Douglas Ling and Clutha is. And then you had the kind of resurgence of Glasgow independent bottlers as well. And it all just felt like Glasgow and whiskey was coming together again, and there was a bit of a resurgence in recent years, and I got really excited about this distillery. But after my first experience with it, I don't know why I backed off. I don't know why I didn't engage. I don't know why. I've got theories, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I bought these. I've got their Peated edition, and they call it Peated, Rich and Smoky. Again, this is a 46% presentation, similar to the original. Triple distilled as well. So they're doing peated malt, they're doing triple distillation, 46% as well. They're calling this smooth and complex. And the original, fresh and fruity. We've got the original, they've got triple distilled and the peaty. I am going to go with the peaty tonight, just because I've gone for a lightly peated Wolfburn here. There's no peat in the Glenglassaugh. There's no peat in the Bladnoch. Stewie Baby's saying, try the green one in the pack. Tried it recently. It's better than first release, in my opinion. That is the one I've gone for, Stewie, the peated one. It's better than first release, in my opinion. That's encouraging. Ryan Sutherland is saying, yep, you're correct with Kinclaith. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. There's a few kind of Killyloch, Kinclaith. There's a few kind of Pans is like a 19th century thing. There's a few K distilleries and Fudgy Brain and things. Hoyt is saying in Barflies, any thoughts on the push for non-glass recycled bottles from Diageo and Bruichladdich? Will they change the taste is my main question. Look, if they go ahead and it does change the flavour, I can't imagine that it's going to be widely embraced. They must have done the research to work out that it's completely inert, and it won't, or they've lined it with some kind of inert membrane or something. However, once it reaches the market, because we are humans and because we find flavours and differences, and we are excited by some things and put off by other things, we will taste a difference. It will change the experience. Absolutely no question, Hoyt. Jimmy Legg is saying you don't have to drink all the whiskey. That's my job. I'm not going to drink it all, but I'm going to have wee pours. So this 1770 is the brand. So if you're ever searching online, sometimes if you're searching for Glasgow, it doesn't pop up. But if you search for 1770, it does. Macon is Whiskey to Whiskey PhD saying I had a dram in the 1771s on a bad Tinder date. So maybe I should give the whiskey a try again. It might not be its fault. Wow. Bruno Mello is saying, Roy, I got to hit the sack. Good night, everyone, and I'll catch the rest on replay. Bruno, out there in Portugal, so nice to have welcomed you in, my friend. Rest easy, and we'll see you next time. Hoyt is saying, he's giving me a wee thumbs up. Good stuff. This nose is spirity. There's a salty fudge and peat smoke. Ever so slightly, I don't want to say savoury, but kind of more darker, more rich. What's that? Slightly. The smoke here is much more. It's hard to. I don't want to say it, and for it to sound negative, let me come back. Jerry Miller is saying, don't ask me to play. Is it a Speyside? My geography is so bad, I wouldn't be able to last or ask a question out of any of the location questions. The thing is, Jerry, if you've got a bottle on hand, the only time that geography comes into it is when it's the Highlands, because it's sprawling all over the place. If it's Speyside and if it's Isla, we tend not to focus so much as when it's the Highlands. Dalwhinnie is the centre of the map, and we use that as the kind of centre of the compass to talk about north, south, east, west. So as long as you know about the bottle that you've got in hand, get me to do the guessing, Jerry, and then step forward. You might have a wee bit of fun, but thank you for your virtual drama, friend. Cheers. It's okay. I'll just say it because it is a neck pour. You know, it's just out the bottle. It's a mini. It's just arrived in a glass. It's not opened up at all, but I'm getting air that's come out of an inner tube, air that's come out of a rubber tire, smoky air that's come out of a rubber tire. Fig, rich toffee, syrup, smoked, dry ash. Like a nutty, walnutty. I think that I get the impression that this is already feels like it's calming down a bit, or I'm getting past that spirity thing. It's not high in alcohol, 46% ABV. There's not a lot of burn here. It's quite easy. Still smells young. Looking for malt. Looking for fruit, looking for grain. Let's just have a wee sip. Wow, okay. Those are kind of not very approachable fainty notes. Kind of muddy grey thing, smoke, inner tube, whatever it was that I was getting on the nose. Didn't translate on the palate. Quite rich and full on the palate. Much better than I expected. The date thing, the fig thing, the syrup thing is there, but it's sweet, kind of honey caramelly. The smoke is ashen smoke, light ashen smoke, not iodine, not Isla, but ashen still, dry ashen smoke. Slightly salty. If the fruit is kind of not cooked, just quiet fruit, not bright, vibrant fruit, kind of poached fruits, that kind of thing. And then ash, a kind of lightly quiet, bitter ash on the finish. You see how dark this is? Is this natural colour? Matured in virgin oak and finished in Pedro Jimenez. Wow. So the date thing, the syrup thing, that's where there's the PX I'm getting there. The virgin oak, maybe you would expect vanillas and toffees and caramels. Lots of kind of more bourbon-y type things from virgin oak. Remarkably well-mannered. Don't let the nose put you off on this. I think maybe just the first pour into the glass. Not picking it up now. Kind of going salted caramel. Prunes. Wow. That's a super, super pleasant surprise, Stewie Baby. I know it was you that recommended the green bottle to me. I have to say that's night and day from the inaugural. That's night and day from what I remember it being. This is so much. Obviously, they're using the cask. They're taking the young spirit. They're putting it in virgin oak to give it a bit of an accelerated start. They're putting some finishing, PX finishing in there. I don't know if it's a marriage. It's a finish, isn't it? And finished in PX sherry casks. So grateful that I wasn't aware of that when I went in, because it was such a pleasant surprise. Rather than looking for it, you pick it up. Oh my goodness. I wanted something to say, oh no, this isn't worth your while. I am justified in ignoring this, but that's not happened tonight. I'm glad to have all of these whiskies. I'm at the stage now that if this peated expression from Glasgow, let's go in and let's not try the triple distilled. That might take a bit of a quiet moment. Let's go in for a wee tiny sip. Got one glass left. I'll show you the other bottles I was going to share with you as well, that I'll have to keep for a future vPub. This is the original. So this is the evolution from this inaugural release. Okay, that same. It's just the tightness of just pouring it into that kind of air from a tire thing's happened again. Lemon, clean, more vibrant. Grated lemon rind. Bit of sherbet, sugared sherbet, confectionery. Fudge, like a fudgy. Brown sugar, definitely not spirity, not as I remember. It's amazing. Things don't stay the same. Brands don't stay the same. The whiskey in the bottle doesn't stay the same. Even if you've approached it and you've not fully connected with it, it's worthwhile speaking to the community, speaking to your friends, speaking to the folk at your club, speaking to the people at festivals, trying whiskies at festivals. I know festivals, it's been a while, right? They will come back again, I'm sure. But you'll cruise past I've tried that. I don't need to try their whiskey. Go back, ask them what's changed. These whiskies have changed, demonstrably have changed. McAllen Fine Rare Doc is saying no colour in any of the 1770s. This is a fudgy. Oh, wow. This is like it's young, it's spirity, there's still prickle, there's still a bit of spice and a bit of heat there, but the overall impression is like a toffee caramel chew. This is I have to say, this is quite encouraging. This is my local distillery. One of my local distilleries. Fantastic. And because, you know, okay, they're not at the age statement point, everything is young, they can't really, so they've got to come at it in a different direction. So they're bringing in peated spirit now. They're clearly defining the peated, clearly defining the original, and they've brought out this triple distilled as well. I won't try the triple distilled tonight. I'm probably being probably making assumptions here, but I think the triple distilled is probably something I should start with. So I'll save this for another moment, maybe for the next time that we do this series, or we do the part 2 of this. I have to say, that's it's too early for me to actively recommend anything tonight. Oh, maybe the Bladnoch has already made it there. Honestly, that was a jump out the glass thing. The Glenglassaugh was excellent, lovely and clean and creamy. The Bladnoch, like I say, it jumped out the glass. I would guess, if I was drinking it blind, I would guess it was way older than 11 years old. Honestly, a really, really fantastic, accomplished whiskey already. The Morven, really lovely, pleasant surprise. Maybe a bit simple, honestly, but that's not to be derogatory. I just, on first pour, on the neck pour, it wasn't very effervescent and complex. It wasn't switching and flickering. It was quite clean and straight and simple. And the Glasgow ones, to finish, my goodness, they've come on a long way since their inaugural release. Lindsay Holman is saying, a birthday dram for you, Roy. Celebrating a birthday today, one ahead of you for a short time. Lindsay, my goodness, I'm going to raise this wee glass then, and I'm going to say many happy returns to you. And you're as old as you've ever been and as young as you're ever going to be, Lindsay. Many happy returns to you, my friend. Slanchiva. Jimmy Legg is saying, I do love it when you have guests, but when it's just you and us, that's the best. You know, Jimmy, I feel thank you so much for that, because it's kind of, when it's just me and I'm kind of monologuing, I'm holding the podium or whatever you want to call it, I do feel like, well, why are these people listening to me? What is it? What have I got to say? They're letting me into their homes and hanging out with them. It's very, very humbling and wonderful to see. At Lassie, Hjort Oatsman, at Lassie, so good to have you in. I've walked Pascal Holman so many times, despite many recommendations to follow tonight's theme. Which one should I choose for a first try? I think the most overt and the most flavourful is the Loch Gorm. I think Mahir Bay is that kind of farmy, agricultural, slightly dirty, sour, Isla peat. I would go for I would go for something that's more connected to things that you like. Kilchoman is a different take on Isla. Absolutely. Is it an enjoyable take on Isla? Absolutely. Have I had some experiences in the past that weren't so good? Absolutely. We've talked about it at length. We talked about it when Anthony was on the stream last year. It's not one that you should ignore. It's fantastic that we have it. The presentation is utterly honest, transparent, and natural. Connect with it, but maybe go through a sample or a trusted friend's recommendation first. I would say that Kilchoman is one to explore. Watchman 999 is saying, Aquavita, you sound better and better as the night goes on. That's more to do with you and your side, I think, my friend. But thank you very much. Jimmy Legg is saying, it's super fun to watch you enjoy whiskey. Can't tell you why, but it is. But that's that vicarious. That's why I love watching malt reviews over on their channel, drinking whiskies I can never afford, whiskies I can never find and things. But that vicarious thing, it's like, oh, watching people connect with this thing and watching people, and you get it because you know what that whiskey is doing to them. When you see them collapse inside themselves and be so contemplative and thoughtful and interrogative and just going right inside the glass. You know what's happening in their brain. And it's fascinating. I love having people around the table in the house. I love being at the club. I love being in the pub. I love watching people trying whiskies for the first time. And it's like at first they feel self-conscious and they're going, oh, I'm going to have to react to this whiskey now. And they stick their nose in and they go, oh, it's actually quite nice. And then they sip it. And the whiskey just overwhelms all the primary senses. It just kind of is connecting and flashing with everything, lighting everything up positively, negatively, and everywhere in between. And they're suddenly not self-conscious. They're naturally reacting to what the spirit is doing to them. And I find it fascinating. And Eric is saying it's relaxing and therapeutic. Jimmy Legg has the right of it. No stress over here. Any more relaxed, and I may not have a pulse. Thank you, Eric. It's an absolute pleasure to have you in. Maybe you know how to relax better than most because of your yoga thing and everything. Yeah, it's good to be able to relax. Falsgraf Frank is saying, tonight, Falsgraf, are you Frank? Oh my goodness, I'm suddenly doubting myself all over the place tonight. Falsgraf, it's great to have you in. Tonight, I started to create a shopping list at my favourite online supplier, adding some of the stuff you drank tonight. What would be amazing is that you don't overspend, you don't go out and buy things that you think don't suffer from fear of missing out, a subject on an upcoming vPub. Don't just go with the things that you feel that are affordable, are presented, that feel like you might connect with. And none of the things, I'll say it again, none of the things I'm sharing with you are going to be gone in a flash. Even this 11-year-old Bladnoch is a significant enough release, excuse me, for it to be available to people generally everywhere. The Glenglassaugh, the Wolfburn, even the 1770, the Glasgow Distillery, there's stocks, there's enough stocks of this to be out there. These little miniatures from Glasgow and things, £20, you can try the 3 of them. Don't overexpose yourself. All of the things I'm sharing tonight, Falsgraf, is going to be available, hopefully, for a long time. Dirty Dog is saying, I am truly enjoying the Sanic. So the Sanic is a good recommendation for Kilchoman. So there you go. If you're looking for another recommendation, Sanic is a good one for Lassie, who was asking a wee bit earlier. Graham Fraser saying the Water of Life Q&A with Liam and Shug from Glasgow Distillery is well worth watching, Roy. Well, the good thing about that is I can go back and rewatch it again, and that would be a fascinating one. And Alice saying I had my first pour of Lagavulin 16 tonight. Oh wow, Al, really enjoyed it. 2009, 11 years ago, 12 years ago now. Lagavulin 16. I was already loving whiskey. I was already enjoying it. I was in there. I was invested. I was converted, but Lagavulin pushed me into an abyss of geekery that I hope I'm never able to crawl out of. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, you were meant to do this, Roy Aquavita, or I see you could have run a whiskey and other spirits radio, even on the internet. But sure, alcohol regulations wise, it's another story, but love the idea. Greg, you're a star. Thank you so much. And they saved me the blushes, my friend. I'm looking forward to raising a glass with you at some point in the future. Chris Pollock is saying, better be fast only until next Wednesday. Is that for the Q&A sessions? That would be a shame because I'm struggling for time right now generally. Jimmy Legg is saying, Roy does not like Lager 16. Don't let him tell you different. There are about 5 whiskies that will never be depleted in my whiskey collection. One day, maybe a theme for a vPub, I'll share what those 5 are. But they're fairly pedestrian, widely available. And I think everybody knows that Lagavulin 16 is one of them. Clynelish 14 is another. Deanston 12 is another again. But it's struggling now, Deanston 12. It's been pushed a wee bit to the side by its older brother. The Deanston 18 is amazing now. The newest, latest bottlings of Deanston 18, I am convinced is a different animal. I think you could put that in front of a Clynelish lover and convince them that it's Clynelish. I'm serious. And Chris is saying, yes, Q&A. Got an email tonight. Fantastic. Kim Brown is saying, already predicting I'll miss out on a February Springbank cast strength release. won't go chasing this year. Kevin, come on, it comes out twice a year. Good for you. Good for you. Leave it to the folk who's needing to buy it for the first time. Don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. What's for you doesn't pass you. You will get your hands on whiskey. We don't need to chase each other. There are themes on upcoming vPubs where I'm going to bring in guests to have their opinions and input about all of these subjects in the future. While you're all here, in the near future, I'm scheduling another session from, well, I won't talk about the one from me right now because it's still very fluid, but that's locked in for February, as well as a session from Graham Unson, who is the master distiller and a production director, I think, at Tomatin. A very, very seasoned guy, a long time in the industry. And I've asked him to come on to talk about wood management specifically, because we throw away that term, wood management, cask management. Sorry, what does that actually mean? Managing wood, managing casks. What are the different casks doing? What does refill mean versus all of the other terms that we use when we talk about wood maturation? I don't want to go into it too much tonight. I want to invite Graham Unson on from Tomatin to talk about his experience in the industry and to talk specifically about wood maturation. Super inspired about that Water Life film when we saw just how recent some of these innovations are. We have to remember just how recent bourbon casks are. And then seeing what Bruichladdich was doing, they were calling it acing, accelerated cask evolution or something. Acing stood for. Glenmorangie was doing it round about the same time. Bruichladdich weren't the first necessarily, but they were the ones who came to the fore with this concept. Glenmorangie were doing it. In fact, Glenmorangie have made a core range out of doing it, arguably. So there's all of these kind of things where we're being manipulative with wood right now, but not always understanding what the different terms are, what they mean, and what they produce. So I thought, look, I need somebody that knows about the handshake between the new make spirit from making that distilled product and first fill when it goes into the cask, and then somebody who knows the life of that whiskey, about recasking, about leaving it in the cask. Who could that be? I reached out through Scott Adamson to Graham Unson, and he's going to join us. He was happy to step forward. And I'm also going to reach out to Matt Mackay, who is the guy behind the Dramble website. We've already spoken and things. It's a conversation that could have gone on for hours, honestly. And he's going to come on and talk about fear of missing out, about bottle chasing, concepts like that. But this idea that there's always more whiskey. There is millions of whiskey, more whiskey than we've ever had in terms of quantity, volume, variation, choice, all of it. So Springbank 12 cask strength, we don't need to worry. Kevin, if you get it, you'll get it. And if you don't worry about it. I'll send you samples of the previous ones. Jimmy Leg is saying, did you see the video on Ralphie's Patreon about a Cooperage in New York State? It was really great. I didn't catch it, Jimmy, but at your recommendation, I'll go and give it a wee watch. Ralphie's a soothing guy to listen to of an evening. Headphones in, dram in hand, Ralphie. Let's get this quiz on the go. I'm already 2 hours in. How could that happen? It's easy. It's the vPub. That's how it happens. I'll reach out to Daniel, ask if he's in good shape to join me for the quiz. Fantastic stuff. Good to see you. Thank you for your patience, Daniel. Thank you for hanging out in the background in here. As I mentioned earlier, if it's your first time for the quiz, we always leave the quiz at the end because not everybody wants to enjoy the quiz. But I encourage you to stay and enjoy it and try, see how you get on with it. You don't need to share your score. It's multiple choice. So even the chimps have a chance of getting a 33% score. I sent this to Doc McAllen Fine and Rare for fact checking tonight, and he has given his opinion on tonight's quiz, but he didn't want me to change anything. He thinks it's okay, but it does come with a Doc warning. Daniel, would you like to see the rating that Doc gave this quiz tonight?
Yes.
He gave it. The chances of anyone getting a 10 out of 10 tonight and having the ability to use the 10 out of 10 emoji is highly unlikely. He even went as far to admit that he scored 9 out of 10, which is fantastic. It's the Doc. He's a very knowledgeable guy. But that 9 out of 10 came with 2 guesses, one he got right and one he got wrong. So he knew 8, and he felt confident about 8. But he said because of some of the asshat, tricky banana skin style questions in there, The chances of people getting a 10 out of 10 tonight is very unlikely. Let's give it a try. Stewie Baby's saying, what was your 6th bottle? You didn't open it tonight. I will try. I will just put myself forward just to show this quickly. I actually had a 5th and a 6th. Jimmy Legg already knows what the 6th was. It was Speyburn, the 15-year-old that we played Is It a Speyside together. That'll need to be reserved for. I'm really interested in this one. I'm really interested to connect with Speyburn again. It's been a long time. I'll save that for a future vPub. And also, curiously enough, from the exact same parent company, this is a product called Deerstalker. 12-year-old at 43%. It's not natural presentation, but it's a brand that's been around for a long time. This is not from the same company, but the distillate inside is. This Deerstalker is not the old Deerstalker Braes of Glenlivet. This is from Balmainach, which is in the same stable as Speyburn, Annock, Balblair, Old Pulteney. This is Balmainach that's in this. And we're grateful to have this because there's no other way that we can try Balmainach easily. There's lots of Balmainach from Scotch Malt Whisky Society, from Cadenheads, from other places in the past, from an independent, but it's not always available all the time. But Deerstalker is quite widely available. It's quite widely distributed. And the Deerstalker 12, this is Balmainach that's inside this, although I am suspicious that it's fairly heavily coloured. Nevertheless, Balmainach is one of those kind of legendary whiskies that's talked about sometimes. Balmainach is one of those whiskies, a bit like Longmorn, a bit like Glentochers, a bit like Clynelish, one of these whiskies that you put inside a blend or you mix it with other whiskies and it seems to make everything better. It's legendary amongst blenders, Balmainach, and yet as a single malt, we are unable to touch it very often at all. Apologies, Daniel, I just wanted to bring myself up so that I could show the bottles that are going to spill over to the next time, and of course I'll accumulate other things that apply to this list of ignored distilleries in between now and then. As I say, the quiz is optional, multiple choice. Please stay along. Pass mark is always 5. I would suggest that the pass mark may even be a wee bit lower than that tonight. Let's see how we go with it. I wish everybody the best of luck. Daniel, thank you. I know you've got your wee pieces of paper ready. Let's see how you got on with it as well. We'll start off nice and easy. Good luck, everyone. Question 1. Which Highland distillery is in Japanese ownership and is said to send 75% of its new make back to Japan? A. Ben Nevis. B. Bladnoch. C. Tomatin. Which of those 3 distilleries is in Japanese ownership?
Total guess.
Said to send 75% back to Japan. Wow, this is the lounge is flying, absolutely flying. Now, I did say in the question Highland Distillery, so that helps you narrow it down to be a 50-50 because Bladnoch is, I think it's the most southern, very close to the most southern distillery. Daniel is already committed to thinking it's Ben Nevis, which is owned by Nikka. And Tomatin is also in Japanese ownership, but which of the 2 sends 75% back to Japan? It is, yes, absolutely Ben Nevis. Which is one of the reasons why Ben Nevis as a single malt for us to buy in the UK is very kind of here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing. They're not always guaranteed to be able to provide the market with product. If you see Ben Nevis, especially the 10-year-old, I have it here. It was very much on the list to potentially that I could talk about tonight if it came up. It's a fantastic and very unique whiskey. If you like dirty whiskies, if you like your Springbanks, your Ben Romacs, your Loch Lomans, those kind of styles, Ben Nevis will speak to you. Fantastic stuff. Question 2, Ballechin or Ballechin is a peated Highlander made at which distillery? Where is Ballechin made? A. Tomintoul, B. Tomatin, or C. Edradour? Would you be guessing here, Daniel, or do you think you know?
Yeah, totally guessing. So I'm usually guessing these games, so my usual mark is 4 out of 10. So nobody following me.
I just saw a super chat fly by. I don't want to miss it. It's from Anthony Dunn. Thank you so much, my friend. He's saying 100% on the quiz. Can I stop now? Yes, of course you can, Anthony. You're welcome to 1 out of 1. You want to just stop now. You're guessing that Blechin is a peated Highlander made at Edredure. If it was Tom and Till, it would be Old Ballantrae. If it was Tomatin, it would be Kuboken. And if it's Edredure, it is indeed Blechin or Blechin. I believe it to be pronounced Blechin. There we go. Greg's Whiskey Guide on 2 out of 2. Malcolm Douglas on 2 out of 2. Well done so far. Question 3. Which Speyside distillery was almost lost after entering into a partnership with the Pattisons months before the famous crash? So Pattisons were some brothers that got into whiskey distilling in the late 19th century and nearly brought the whole industry to its knees, caused a huge problem. They were cheats. They were taking cheap young whiskey and blending it and overselling it. And they were cooking the books, all sorts of bizarre things. They ended up going to prison, but not before they brought the Scotch whiskey industry to its knees in the late 19th century, early 20th century. But there was a distillery just mere months before all this came to light that got into partnership with the Pattison brothers, and it nearly saw the end of one of our most famous distilleries. A. Tom and Till. B. Glenfarclas. C. Knock Do. Which distillery did we almost lose? Jimmy Legacy, now we're in the past. We're about 120 odd years in the past, Jimmy. Fascinating stuff, though. Back before, single malts were not really a thing. They existed, but they were, let's say, they were not exported. They were not widely distributed. It was all about the blends and the blend markets back then. It was all about trying to maintain consistency, to brand a product and sell it and give people reassuring quality. And that's where the Pattisons abused things and get caught. B, says Daniel for Glenfarclas, which is absolutely right. Glenfarclas had to sell heaps of stock and mortgage themselves, and they barely kept the wolf from the door, and they kept it going, and we're so grateful that they did. But it was B, Glenfarclas. If you answered B, give yourself a point. Question 4, potential banana skin. In 2019, Auchentoshan released a triple distilled ex-bourbon combined with PX and Oloroso called what? 2019, year before last, they released everything from Auchentoshan is triple distilled, but it was ex-bourbon combined with Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso, and they called it, oh no! Oh no! Hopefully, there's lots of people that were looking at the screen and got a free point out of my slip of the finger there. Daniel, did you manage to see the screen there a wee bit as it skipped forward twice? James McGonn's giving me a wink. Yay, B.
Banana skin.
Just saying, the banana skin's been busted tonight. We were convinced, even the doc commented on this, that it's likely that people are going to answer Blood Oak because it's a known travel retail release from Auchentoshan. I had not heard of the Dark Oak, so put it in for a banana skin. Absolutely, it is B, Dark Oak. The difference being that this was Pedro Jimenez, and here's some PX in there. And Anthony Dunn is saying it is perhaps B. Absolutely right. Oh, dear me. You know what I have to do? I have to have a slide set up with the wrong answer on it and accidentally, but on purpose, skip forward and then skip back. And no, that's no very fair at all. Let's slip into the question that uses pictures. Halfway point, question 5. And I'm always looking at quite a spooky looking scene here with a graveyard in the foreground here, asking what distillery we're looking at first and foremost. But what I'm actually asking is, who owns this distillery? A, Edrington Group. B, Diageo. C, William Grant's. I don't think it helps much, but I think by the kind of gently rolling hills, the kind of trees in the background, I mean, it suggests a wee bit kind of Speyside style to me. The pagoda roof, the buildings are kind of fitting with that as well. Could be Highland. Daniel's going to plump for a B. He thinks it's Diageo. What does the lounge think tonight? Greg's Whiskey Guide is shouting easy. Whiskey Radar is say and E150A in it. Thanks, Roland. Ryan Sutherland is saying you're so generous. Aye, thanks, Ryan. I didn't intend to be so generous this evening. Aye, but we're asking, is that a Edrington plant? Is it a Diageo plant or a William Grant's plant? I can tell you, unfortunately, this is your first slip up tonight, Daniel. We are looking at Glenrothes. This is Glenrothes, which is currently owned by Edrington. And the graveyard in the foreground is the inspiration for their Halloween releases. In the last couple of years, they've had annual Halloween releases in the orange labelling and packaging. Greg's Whiskey Guide is already on 5 out of 5 for winning a pass mark, along with Dogs Have No Uncles. That's Colin, the Drama Experience, on 5 out of 5 as well. Good to have you in. 5 out of 5 for Matthias. James McGoran is no happy, saying bugger. Jesse Voicing is in. Good to see you, Jesse. Whiskey Frontier on 5. Lindsay Holman 5. Lots of 5 out of 5 tonight, and the chat rolls past. Question 6. We're on the back end now, the back half. Which of these distilleries is owned by a company called Terroir Distillers? A. Torrevec, B. Bruichladdich, C. Tullibardine. Which of these distilleries is owned by a company called Terroir Distillers? A. Torrevec, B. Bruichladdich, or C. Tullibardine? Mark is saying, got lucky falling in the lounge on the picture. Whiskey Central is saying, damn, I knew the distillery, but couldn't remember the owner. 4 out of 5. Unlucky, Shayla. Nice to have you in. Precarious Davis saying, they've repainted that door in the middle compared with Whiskey Yearbook 2020. Not I checked. Dave, fantastic. Quickly flicking through his book. Ian Bose is saying, 5 out of 5. Have to admit, I didn't know question 4. Thanks for the prompt. Ian, you're very, very welcome. That means you can sneak a 5 out of 5 at the halfway point. C, you think it's Tullibardine that's owned by Terroir Distillers, Daniel. I have to say you're doing very well tonight, my friend. This is a good showing for you. Pass mark already. 5 out of 6 for Daniel. Tullibardine is the right answer. I felt that Bruichladdich might have been tempting for so many folk, but it's obviously owned by Remy.
Yes. So it's probably my best game until now.
Fantastic. Maybe you should do it live more often.
Yes.
Question 7. Which distillery owners bottled and released mature whiskies under the name Prometheus? So new distillers tend to come on board. They're waiting on their whiskey mature. They're waiting on their own product. So they come up with innovative things. They either do gin, or they do sourced whiskies, or they do various things, selling new make to try and bring some cash in. Which distillery released Prometheus? Is it A, Annandale, B, Isle of Rassay, or C, Glasgow? Which of these 3 distilleries is known for releasing Prometheus? Various batches, various ages, various prices. Haven't had the privilege.
I didn't catch that.
Haven't had the privilege of trying any. The lounge seemed to be with you, Daniel.
I try not to sneak on the lounge, so totally my guesses.
There's an inevitability. Hoyt is saying almost beating the chimp. 4 out of 6. Absolutely, you are, Hoyt. Going with the crowd, says Yash. C. I feel cheap going with the lounge again, but C. Mark, don't worry about it. That's the power of community, right? So let's go and see if Daniel's right. Absolutely, Glasgow. If we look back, Annandale, they had Man of Swords. Well, Man of Swords is mature product. They were selling new make as well, I believe. I think they were. Isle of Rassay sold a sourced whiskey called While We Wait. And Glasgow sold sourced, very, very mature sourced whiskey. The exclusive whiskey is called Prometheus. Question 8. Which of these revived distilleries, quite an interesting thing tonight with revived distilleries, because we had Bladnoch, we had Glenglassaugh. There was quite a theme in the ignored whiskies. Some of them were revived. Has a rich history linked with Johnny Walker. A, Glengyle, B, Bladnoch, or C, Annandale? One of those distilleries has a very rich history that they talk about. If you ever go to their visitor centre, they talk about it there. Perhaps it's even mentioned on the website, not sure. But they actively talk about their 100 years ago or so, history with Johnny Walker? Are we talking about A. Glenglassaugh, B. Bladnoch, or C. Annandale? Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, wow, tough one. Doc did admit that this is one to please the geeks. Daniel has put his bid in, and he is suggesting Bladnoch. Bladnoch was, until very recently actually, owned by the company that we now know as Diageo. But is Daniel right? Unfortunately, no. It's Annandale. Annandale. They do make a bit of a play. I don't know how much they're allowed to make of a play on that. I don't know how much they're allowed to leverage Johnny Walker, but it is fact that it is very much part of the Annandale history down there. And it was one of the key components back in the day to the early 20th century Johnny Walkers. Macon is saying, yes, he's celebrating that one. Good for you if you got that right. And Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, oh no, he maybe slipped the same as you did, Daniel. Question 9, second from last. Deerstalker 12 is a single malt. I may have helped you all here. Made at Balmainach. But there was also a 10-year-old made where Deerstalker was also from another distillery. Not Balmainach. Was it A, Brave Val, B, Craigelachie, or C, Tom and Till? I'm very surprised how much youthful enjoyment I'm getting out of these Glasgow whiskies tonight. That's a big surprise.
Yeah, I think the crowd says I'm wrong.
Oh, you've committed to Craigelachie? The crowd seem to be leaning towards Brave Al. Greg's Whiskey Guide says, thank you, Roy. I did have it. One of my favourite distilleries, in fact, A. Lindsay Holman is admitting he's no clue. He's going to go with the crowd and guess A. Daniel should have perhaps done the same thing and listened to the knowledgeable whiskey crowd. Brave Al was the 10-year-old. I did mention it earlier, but instead of saying Distillery Brave Al, I think I said Braids of Glenlivet. Same thing, same distillery, just a different label. And Colin is saying, dogs have no Uncle C, just to be different. Oh, how you would have celebrated, Colin, right? But unfortunately for you, my friend, Roy mentioned it 20 minutes ago. Macallan Fine and Rare is saying, Mark Slinger is saying, Roy, I'm on track for my lowest ever score and first ever fail, 3 out of 9. Oh my goodness. Pass Mark is going to, but you've got a sniper coin, Mark. So it's a good day. It's a good day. You still have a sniper coin from Doc. Of course, I'm going to finish with an asshat question. It's fairly brutal. This comes with a Doc warning. Good luck, everyone, for the asshat at the end. Oh, sorry, I've given you 2 pictures of the... I actually showed you the physical bottle of the Deerstalker 12 tonight. On the left there, on the right is the 10-year-old. Which of these is a closed Campbelltown distillery? There's only about 30 of them. But which of these is a closed Campbelltown distillery? A, Mountain Dew, B, Hazelbank, or C, Stronachy? Take your time, Daniel. Take your time. Hold your water. Don't hold your wee card up yet. Graham Fraser is on 9 out of 9. Okay, here's the enemies I'm going to make if 10 out of 10.
So it's my 9th guess today.
You're going to go with Stronachy. Daniel is guessing C. I have to say so many of the crowd are agreeing with you and guessing C as well. Scrolling down, Mike Johnson, that looks like a new name. Nice to welcome you here, my friend. Mike, you seem to suggest A, which is Mountain Dew. Ryan Sutherland thinks it's B, Hazelbank. Dirty Dog thinks B as well. So many people thinking B, B, B. Driverfish, good to have you, is saying A. Bruno Martins is saying A. Jesse Voicen is saying A. And XS2 Scotch is saying A with a big smiley face. I can tell you, Daniel, unfortunately, my friend, the back 9 was brutal to you. It's Mountain Dew, also known as Thistle, occasionally known as Thistle. I love the name, obviously, because of this citrus-based soft drink that's American, of course, but recently, in recent years here, Mountain Dew. It's quite surprising that there was a whiskey distillery called that. It was occasionally called Thistle, but that's what I was looking for. A bit of an asshat question to close out. And they mention just how many distilleries there were down in Campbelltown at one point in time, I think, in excess of 30 distilleries down there. Let's have a wee look if people are shouting at me. Greg's Whiskey Guide. Funny, I asked this question with other names in another quiz. I wonder if that helped you, Greg. Yash is saying a pass, 6 out of 10, pass thanks to the crowd and Roy's slip up. Yash, you just take it. You just take it when it's falling for you. And Jimmy Legg is celebrating and laughing on 8 out of 10. I kept away from the capacity questions tonight. Jimmy, you'll notice Gigi UK is 8 out of 10, but complaining about the asshat question. Great score, those Gigi. Let's look at, see if there's anybody that beats that. How did you get on? A pass mark, Daniel. Congratulations. Well done. 6 out of 10. Well done, my friend.
9 guesses.
9 guesses. You knew one for sure. Lindsay Holman is saying, oh, well, equal best score 8 out of 10. Is there any 10 out of 10? Was Doc's prediction right? And there were 9 out of 9s. Did they slip up at the very end? Yes, I think Doc ended up being right. It could have been close, but I don't see any 10 out of 10s. Has anybody got it? Ryan Sutherland is saying, I've got the song stuck in my head now after hearing the distillery name. Apologies for giving you an earworm, Ryan. 6 out of 10 for James Allsop, a pass mark. No, Precarious Dave, 8 out of 10. Delighted with my RT research, as I call it. And Macon is celebrating. 7 out of 10 for Chris Banks Wildlife. ONG, 7 out of 10. Good score. Owen, good score. Chris. Falscraft, lowering my average to 6.5. That's not bad, Falscraft. It's really good pass mark, strong scoring. Still haven't seen it. I did guess Mountain Dew because it's about asshat. Absolutely, absolutely everyone. No, I can't see anybody with a 10 out of 10, so it looks like Doc's prediction was absolutely right. Let me raise a wee glass to say goodbye to my friend tonight. I'm going to go back to the glass I started with. I've got quite a few wee whiskies to enjoy before I go to bed tonight, but I've got the timestamps to leave underneath, so that will keep me happy while I go through and scroll through all the timestamps for everybody to make it easy to watch on the replay. Daniel, in the meantime, thank you so much for stepping forward to play a wee game of us at Speyside. If you want to get in touch with me directly, anybody to play this game, send my wee email, whisky@aquavitae.com, or join the Aquavitae's Barflies page and comment on the topic in there, and I'll get your details and we can hook you up at some point in the future. It's always good, like we did with Daniel tonight, to put a face to the name. Daniel, it's nice to have you in our community, my friend. It's nice of you to be brave enough to step forward behind the bar tonight. And well done on snagging yourself a coin and also helping Doc get a coin out to Mark Slinger tonight as well. Daniel, thank you so much. Pleasure. Until the next time.
Everybody. Good night.
Excellent. Thoroughly enjoyed it tonight. I know it was all just me kind of monologuing from a wee podium, but I did manage to share a lot of whiskey tonight, and I shared some kind of initial reactions with things that honestly, on first approach, I'm really glad that I have. I'm at the point where I'm thinking I should maybe go out and pick up a wee 1770 as well and have it there. Local distillery too. Gino is in. Gino, my friend, he's saying, Aquavitae, thanks for another great and relaxing vPub. Slant you to all, slant you to you too. Gino, my friend, it's lovely to welcome you in here. Hellswood is saying top stream again. Roy, thanks and good night. Thank you, Helen. Thanks for being here. Erwin Laranaga is here. Wow, it's still going. Must have been a good show. Erwin, you let me know. I'll try and catch up with the timestamps underneath, and you can pick it up on the replay, my friend. It's always nice to have caught you. And if Gregor or Sevi was here, they would have gotten 10. maybe. We'll see how they got on in the replay. But Jason Whiskey-wise is in. I was expecting you to have a chance of 10 out of 10, Jason, as well. Hopefully see you in a stream soon. Good night, all, and thank you, Roy, for the vPub. Thank you for being here, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Wonderful stuff. Chris Pollack is saying, thanks, Roy. Thanks to all of you. Like I say, I'm hoping that if everything aligns, I'll be able to welcome in Graham Eunson for a fantastically insightful geek out on the influence of casks and what actually cask management, wood maturation, and all the complexities that go with that is all about. That'll be the session next week. If any of these heard Graham Eunson talking to anybody before. He's a super interesting guy and he's got lots to share. Al is bought me a wee dram and saying, thanks, Roy. Great vPub. Thank you, Al. Thank you for being here, my friend. Cheers to you. Dirty Dog is saying, likes, thanks for the vPub, Roy. Cheers for encouraging the whiskey community not to ignore those drams on the shelf. Not just the stuff I've shared with you, not just the brands that I'm suggesting that I ignore. I think it's something, an affliction that we all suffer from, that we all cruise past brands. But when they're putting it on the label, unchill filtered, when they're giving us it at the ABV that we ask for, when they're telling us that it's naturally coloured, and when they're pricing it at a level that's affordable, there's a good chance that the whiskey is going to be worthy of our attention. We work together as a community to work out where the engagement comes from, where the value is, and we share it with each other and we celebrate and evangelize about the products that are, bringing it. That's very much what this channel is all about, and I'm very grateful that you guys can contribute so much to that. Thanks for the vPub, Roy says, Dirty Dog. Cheers to everyone. Sorry, I picked it up, Dirty Dog, I did. Sorry, it's duplicate myself. Chris is saying, night, Roy, thanks again. Any chance you would consider doing a patron lock-in on a Saturday? I am kind of in the rhythm of doing them on Sundays, Chris, but you never know. Lock-in has thrown everything. Every night's a Saturday night almost. Well, unless you're homeschooling like me. It's possible, Chris. It is possible. And if it fits, it might be fun to do it. Let's see. Noted. Thank you, my friend. Daniel Herman is saying, thanks to all. It was a pleasure to be here. It was a pleasure to have you, Daniel. Graham Fraser is saying, thanks, Roy. A good stream tonight and my equal best quiz score. Good for you, Graham. I saw that you were performing well. Eric is saying, thanks, Roy. Another great one. My favourite weekly event. Remember, a good dram is one of the best meditations. Let's raise a glass to that, Eric. Wonderful sentiment. Magic is in us. I want to know how to pronounce your name. Thanks for a warm welcome and great stuff. Thank you for your support and for being here. Greg is saying, yeah, I'm happy you spoke about Balmenic, Breval, Bladnoch, Wolfburn, and some others. And I'm happy you joined for us to talk about it, Greg. Jimmy's saying, I do not ignore integrity whiskey. There just isn't enough of it. I am struggling, Jimmy, honestly speaking, as I've demonstrated tonight. And I know it's so much about location, my friend. I really know that it's so much to do with that. I'm struggling to keep up with how much integrity whiskey is out there. That's what I'm talking about tonight. Yes, some of the ones I listed out of the 20 tonight don't offer integrity whiskies, but some of them do. The ones that I prioritise tonight get very close. Great crack tonight, says Stewie Baby. Thanks, sweet drams. Sweet drams, I like that. Good night to you as well, Stewie. Thank you. Night Barflies. Rican Haddock saying, cheers, Roy. Whiskey 101. Nick is saying, thanks, Roy. Let's change the title. Don't ignore anything for those who catch the replay. Aye, good one. And Chris Pollack is saying, homeschooling is meltdown for me too. There are things I'm good at, and there are things I just have to accept that I'm not so good at. We are not equipped to teach our own children. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Anyway, let's keep things positive. I'm going to raise a glass of the star of tonight, honestly speaking, this Bladnoch 11-year-old. It's changed quite a lot in the glass. It's become quite creamy now. Lighter. What is that? Icing sugar? Anyway, I'll see you all a week from now when I'm hopefully welcoming somebody with a lot more knowledge and insight than I have. And until then, I'm going to raise this glass and say thank you to you all, you beautiful whiskey folk. You're all very dearly loved. It's been a pleasure to hang out with you for far too long again, but it's the vPub. That's okay. I'm looking forward to welcoming you all in again for another session a week from tonight. Until then, I'll raise this glass and say thank you and Slàinte. Good night.